Welcome to Kedem. We launched our channel 2 months ago, and first movie was When Did the Judaism Begin? With Professor Jonathan Adler. This topic raised a lot of questions, a lot of discussions. Only below the video we have about 700 comments. So I think it could be a great practice just Welcome to Kedem channel. Today we are with the professor of Ariel University, Jonathan Adler. Jonathan recently published a book, Origins of Judaism, published by the Yale University, deeply into the research. Could you please define what is actually a Judaism?
That's an excellent question. Super important to begin with definitions. For me and for my purposes of this book, Judaism refers to the Jewish way of life as it's been practiced for many hundreds of years, where the daily life is governed by observance of Torah law. When I say Torah law, I'm referring to essentially the Pentateuch, which is the foundational text for what I'm calling Torah here. And on the basis of the Pentateuch, we have an entire system of law which grew up surrounding these Pentateuchal texts. The Jewish way of life, as I'm calling it, has been governed by this Torah law for centuries. And I'm referring to things like the Sabbath prohibitions, the various Jewish holidays, refraining from leaven, from eating leaven, from owning leaven on Passover, fasting on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement, building booths, Sukkot, on the holiday of Sukkot, tabernacles, taking the 4 species, the palm branch and the citron and the myrtle and the willow, on the festival of Sukkot. The kashrut laws, the laws of the dietary prohibitions, countless laws that govern the Jewish way of life from the time that a person wakes up in the morning until he goes to sleep at night, from cradle to grave. These laws define what it means to be a Jewish person and have defined what it has meant to be a Jewish person for a long time. The question that I ask in this book is, when did all of this begin? So you asked, what do I mean when I talk about Judaism? This is what I'm referring to. Judaism today can mean other things as well. We can refer to beliefs that define Judaism. I'm not looking at beliefs. What I'm looking at in my book is practices, the practices, prohibitions that are defined by the Torah. I'm looking to see, when did this, to me, from the beginnings first, looking at the question of the idea of Shabbat begin. When did the idea of dietary laws begin? This is something which biblical scholars have been studying, and the best way to start looking for laws I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking at the history. We can text. I'm looking at a question of social. I speak about people. I'm interested in the masses, regular, everyday people, the farmers, the craftsmen, the home. In laws, when did they first these laws? When did they know that they were in authority to actually put them into practice? This is
so basically two things, Moses, and we have an archaeology. And what's your method? How do you going to answer this question based on these two sources of information?
Okay, so absolutely, we have two sources of data for answering the question that I'm asking. What I do in the book is I have a very clear method, very simple method for answering this question: when does Judaism first emerge? What I do is I take a period of time. The amount indicates that they knew that it's authoritative and were putting it into practice. That period of time is the first common era. So the first century time that we know from the Gospels, and this is the time of Josephus. This is the period of time of Alexandria. This is a period of time when we all have a semantic arcades that Jews were observing the laws of the Torah.
If I have a time machine, as related to the Jewish practice,
absolutely, they would look a little bit different, but you would absolutely be able to. It's the same species, right? Of Jewish people recognize the Torah. If you were to stop someone on the seventh day of the week and see if they wouldn't be going to work. Okay. If you were to stop someone on the 10th day, it would be fasting. And on the passages. This is the Judaism. So the method that I use is that I take the first century as a benchmark, and then I go backwards in time. So I go backwards to the first century BCE, to the second century BCE, to the third century BCE. And I'm looking at evidence ends means that before that, I don't have any evidence. Okay. So in archaeological terms, we call this a terminus ante quem. What that means is that Judaism must have emerged where the trail of evidence ends or earlier. Right? Absence of evidence
שמיים וארץ, עליתם למות רגליך, על ינום שמרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל, יהוה שמרך, יהוה צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, ויורח בלילה, Yahweh yishmocha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Yahweh yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Me'ata ve'ad olam.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to this week's World Alliance of Qara'im Torah study. This week we are in Parashat Tetzaveh, starting in Exodus chapter 27, verse 20, going through basically 28, 29, and then part of chapter 30. So it's not that long a parsha, but it's pretty packed. So we get an overview of the parsha. Stop the music. So we get an overview of the parsha. Then we're going to see it has to do a lot about the artifacts or the vessels that go into the temple, and then the garments for the priests. So this is the kind of parsha again where a picture is worth 1,000 words. I will try to play some videos. Okay, and so we can get an idea of exactly what's going on here. Okay, so we're done for the most part, at least for now, with the narrative part of the Torah. Right, first we had Genesis, which was the story of the ancestors, of the progenitors of the nation of Israel, and then we had the story of the Exodus. We have been in now for a couple of weeks, a lot of descriptions of things which are to be built for the tabernacle and later the temple. And it can get really complicated and really boring if it's not done the right way. So I'm going to try to do it as much as possible the right way. Of course, we're going to go through the text and we're going to read it, but we'll also try to, as much as possible, visualize what's being spoken about. And because in this case, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We know that Moshe, let's see if I can find it now. That's going to be at around Exodus 24, maybe. One second here. One second. Moshe, wir jetzt one second. I should know this chapter and verse by heart because it's really kind of an important verse, but I have to find it. So just give me 1 second. If I can't find it, there it is. Exodus 25:7. So Moses goes up on the mountain, right? Moses goes up to the mountain and speaks with Yahweh, speaks with God. And Yahweh tells the children of Israel, or tells Moses to tell the children of Israel to donate the raw materials, or asks, I should say, requests of the children of Israel to donate the raw materials for the tabernacle, for the temple, for the tabernacle service. And let's pick it up here. So here are some various things. Oh, you guys can't even see that screen. I've got to reshare. Hold on. I've got to go over here. Okay. Okay, that should do it. So we're going to pick it up here. So a bunch of different things. which we spoke about last week. And then verse 6 says, Shemin le'ma'or, b'samim le'shemin, hamishcha. I'm just going to do the modern Hebrew pronunciation. When we do this week's parsha, I'll get more into my attempted ancient Hebrew or Tiberian Masoretic Hebrew pronunciation as best as I can. Shemin le'ma'or, b'shamayim le'shemin, hamishcha, le'ketot samim. So basically, oil and spices. God asks Moses to tell the children of Israel to donate. Avnei shoham, expensive stones, or they sometimes translate this as onyx. Avnei miluim, and I think shoham is actually always onyx. And avnei miluim, setting stones and ephod, so different types of stones. Okay. Ivasuli mikdash, v'shachanti b'tocham, and you shall make for me a sanctuary. V'shachanti b'tocham, mikdash, from the word kodesh, which is usually translated as holy. Hence the English translation sanctuary, right? Sanctuary comes from sanctified. The Latin comes from originally the Latin word sanctus, I believe. Sanctus would be the adjective. That's where you get words like saint. That's why for instance, in Spanish or in Portuguese, you would have the word santo, because to Mary, right, one of the ships that Columbus sailed the 7 seas, sailed the ocean blue with, right? At any rate, so that's why it's usually translated as a sanctuary. A holy place is basically what it means, or sometimes a set apart place, you'll see translated as for the better translations. And I shall dwell among them. And we spoke about last week how Yahweh dwells between the cherubim on the ark cover, on the kaporet, the cover over the ark that holds the tablets. And here's the verse that I wanted to point out. So this is Exodus chapter 25, verse 9. And Shabbat Shalom Mar Yanana Miknana Banana, and Shalom Reuben and Avivaskari. Shabbat Shalom to you. Verse 9. Kechol asher ani mare otcha et tavnit hamishkan ve'et tavnit kol kelav v'chein ta'asu, according to all that I shall show you, the structure or the how do they translate tavnit here? Let's get a better word. The pattern. There we go. The pattern of the sanctuary, not of the sanctuary. A pattern. I don't like the word pattern. Let's go with the design of all of its vessels. V'chein ta'asu, and so you shall do. Okay. So the point is, it uses the word here in Hebrew. The word is mar'eh. Okay, mar'eh comes from the Hebrew root ra'ah, resh, aleph, hey, which means see, to see. Okay, mar'eh is what's called the causative form. Basically, it means to cause to see, or usually translated as show. Right. So God is telling to Moses, you're going to do. I'm just going to go ahead now and describe all of these things. Right. That's in grueling detail over the next 10 chapters or so. No more. 34, 35, yeah, about the next 10 chapters or so. Okay? But you're not going to do based on the words. You're going to do based on what I show you. Okay? So God showed Moshe a vision of how God wanted his tabernacle to look. Okay? This is not rabbinical. It sounds like rabbinical gobbledygook, as I like to say. It sounds like something the rabbis would make up because it feeds right into their polemic of an oral law. Although, as we said last time, it's not an oral law; it's a visual law, right? But that God is showing Moses exactly the way everything should appear, right? Well, if God is showing Moses the way that everything is supposed to appear, what do we need all these descriptions, these very, very technical, torturous descriptions of the tabernacle, where, quite frankly, when these parshas are read in the synagogue, most people, fall asleep during it. It can get really boring, right? It's not the same as Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed by a gofrit, by a brimstone and fire raining down from the heavens. I mean, that that's a good chase scene and all. This is a lot more, yawn invoking, shall we say, right? Well, I mean, the obvious reason is that the Torah the written Torah is a record, right? It's not just meant to be for building the temple at that time. It's meant to be a record for all generations, right? And if Moses was just shown and then the tabernacle was built and that tabernacle were destroyed, as it was, as the first temple was destroyed, second temple was destroyed, right? Then we'd have no more record of it, right? So the words serve their purpose. So this visual law, not oral law, this visual law was side by side with the written description of the tabernacle in about the next 10 chapters. But, and we went into it last week, I'm not going to get into it this week, that in no way, shape, or form implies that that in oral law, in the sense that the rabbis spoke about, is proven by this verse. We spoke about that last week. I'm not going to go down that road again this week. Okay? So, at any rate, Moses is shown exactly how he wants, how God wants it. It shows Moshe exactly how he wants it. And Moshe is running the show later on, right? He takes two assistants. That's going to be Bezalel and the name escapes me, but we'll get to it. Now I can't remember. Okay. At any rate, he takes two assistants to carry out the work. But the point is that Moses is still running the show because he was actually shown the vision, and it's God's house, right? I mean, God gets the right to design it however the heck he wants, right? If you become a multi-billionaire by I don't know, selling cheap crap over the internet and originally a bookstore, then you can design your house however you want. Okay, so Kal v'chomer, to quote the rabbis, even more so that God, who is the owner of heaven and earth, gets to design his house as he sees fit. Okay, that's his aesthetic. We can question why it's his aesthetic, but that's his aesthetic, right? But it also serves a practical purpose, obviously, which is to be a place basically where God and the nation of Israel, and by extension, humanity, come to meet. Okay? All right. Enough of that. So let's go back now. So in last week's Parsha, we spoke about the structure of the vessels that go in the sanctuary. Out in the courtyard, we didn't get to it last week, but out in the courtyard, that's where the altar is. That's where the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices, were brought. And then this week we get into the garments for the Levites, okay? Or for the priests, I should say, okay? And for the Levites. Will eventually be we know the children of Aharon, the descendants of Aharon, those are the priests, but that has not yet been done, right? So we're just speaking about priests in general. The temple has not yet been inaugurated. That'll come later on, okay? But the description of the priestly garments is what we're going to cover in this week's Parsha. Okay, so let's start here. We're in Exodus chapter 27, verse 20. And now we're going to talk about the oil for the lamps. I should always point out that whenever oil is mentioned anywhere in the Tanakh, I think there's only one exception that I can think of in the entire Tanakh right now, and that's in Song of Songs. But whenever oil is mentioned anywhere in the Tanakh, it always means olive oil. It's understood. It's muvan me'alav. It's understood without having to mention it, right? Just like if I were to say, I don't know what would be an example. If I were to say today, corn. Maybe that's not a good example. If I were to say oil today, like cook your fries in oil, then it would imply, processed, disgusting, cheap GMO vegetable oil. So here we are. We're in chapter 27, verse 20. Ve'ata titzaveh et bnei Yisrael. Elecha shemen zayit zach fatit limor lehalot ner tamid. Okay, so you shall command the children of Israel that they should bring to you, literally take to you, but bring to you shemen zayit. Here it says it explicitly, shemen zayit, olive oil. Zach. So we have two adjectives to describe the olive oil. One is zach and one is katit. Okay, so zach is usually translated as pure, and katit is usually translated as beaten. Okay, and we went into this in detail last year. Maybe we'll speak about it a little bit. Okay, but we'll get back to that in a second. So pure, beaten olive oil. Okay, it lema'or for lighting, la'alot ner tamid, to bring up, or to it literally means to bring up, but la'alot means it's a euphemism, or it really intends to mean to cause the lamp to be lit always, the menorah to be lit always. And we said the menorah is in the inner sanctum, not the inner sanctum, but the inner sanctum. It's within the tent. It's when you walk in, it's on the left side of the tent. The showbread altar is on the right side of the tent, and the incense altar is in the center. So let's go. Sign of the tabernacle. Let's see if we can find a good one. Okay. I guess. No. There we go. Good enough. Okay. So if you look on the right here, okay. So this is a setup of the tabernacle. Okay. So this is the altar on the right. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving, but that's where the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices, are brought. This is the laver for washing. Okay. And then you walk into the tent of meeting, okay, the holy place, Kodesh. And on the left-hand side, when you're walking in, bread. In the center, you have the incense altar. Then you go to the curtain over here, the parochet, it's called. And inside the Holy of Holies, you have the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so that's the way it's set up. Maybe we can find a slightly better diagram. Okay, that'll do. So, so that's what we're talking about, right? So there's only one candle that's lit in the entire place. Okay, when it says ner, okay, the lamp, it's speaking about the lamp, or the lamp of the menorah. Okay, and let's get a picture of the menorah. 7-pronged menorah. Okay, well, whatever. These are just random pictures. So there we go. That would be a good one. Even though it doesn't have all the elements of the tabernacle. Let's find a good one. Okay, here we go. Close enough. Okay, even though it's missing some things, but close enough. Okay, so that would be the menorah on the left, showbread altar on the right, or the showbread on the right, the incense altar in the middle, and then it doesn't show the curtain, but there's the Ark of the Covenant inside. Okay. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about these two words, zach and katit. I think we'll do that by going to Robert Alter. So this is Exodus 27, because I think he mentions it, if I remember, from last year. So a second here. Okay, so 27 verse 20. So clear oil of beaten olives. Okay, so we saw it translated in the other translation, the NIV, is pure. Here in the Robert Alter translation, it's clear oil of beaten olives. We can look at Everett Fox, the Shokin Bible, which is pretty good. If I can, not bad. And he translates it as clear and beaten. Okay, so what's this clear and beaten? What the heck are we talking about here? Why does it have to be clear and why does it have to be beaten? Okay, well, I don't claim to be a complete olive oil expert, but I use a heck of a lot of olive oil, and I know something about olive oil. I'm very into cooking and growing fruits and vegetables in the garden, as is my good friend Marianana Miknana. She has shown me some amazing things that she has grown and preserved. At any rate, so, well, you have different pressing. So let me just describe from my understanding, okay? You take the olives, okay? And basically what you do, first you crush them, okay? That's the beaten part. And once they're crushed, then you press them, okay? And the way it was done, maybe I'll even run a video on it, the way it was done in ancient times is you kind of have these, I think they were made out of straw, but you have these lattices that you put them in between, and you press the olives, and you do a number of pressings. You do a first pressing, and then a second pressing, and then maybe a third pressing. Okay, and the first pressing is the highest quality olive oil. Okay, that's the zach. If you look at the first pressing of olive oil, then it's going to be clear. It's not going to be cloudy. It's not going to have a lot of cloud. It's not going to have a lot of cloudiness and sediment in it. Once that's done, you've taken this first pressing of the olive oil, which in modern parlance we call extra virgin olive oil. The extra virgin olive oil is from the first pressing. Actually, I think the technical definition of extra virgin olive oil is it has less than a certain acidic or acidity to it. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's less than 5% acidity or something like that. That's considered extra virgin olive oil. That's the highest quality olive oil, and that usually comes from good quality olives in their first pressing. So you're going to get this very pure, very non-acidic, not bitter, not acidic kind of olive oil. Okay, that's the zach. The katit part is that it's beaten, that it's crushed beforehand. Well, we'll get to the katit part in a second. Okay. Anyway, after you're done with the first pressing, you can now release the press, and you can press again, and more olive oil will come out, but it's going to be lower quality olive oil. It's going to be more bitter. It's going to be more acidic. It's going to be cloudy because it has more sediments in it, and it's going to have more sediment in it. Okay, you're going to see at the bottom, if you get low quality olive oil, a lot of times you'll see at the bottom sediment. You'll see little pieces of I don't know if it's the olive pits or the actual olive or maybe dirt from the ground. Not 100% sure, but you'll see sediment in lower quality olive oil. And then you could do a third pressing, and that's usually considered, that's called they call it pumice oil, if I'm not mistaken, or they call it in Hebrew, they call it shemen lema'or, lighting oil, which is the lowest quality oil. Okay, so much so that it's really not considered it's not considered edible. It might even be dangerous to a certain degree. I don't remember, but I know you're not supposed to eat shemen lema'or. You're not supposed to eat this pumice oil, this third pressing oil. It's very bitter. It's basically the leftover dregs, whatever you can squeeze out of the olive after you've squeezed everything else out, and you can use it for lighting, for lighting candles, but you're not supposed to eat it. Okay, well, that's my layman's understanding of olive oil. Okay, if there is an olive oil expert here who makes or presses their own olive oil, then please feel free to hop on and add to it or correct me. But that's the basic idea. Okay, so the zach, and by the way, the olive oil that's used in the temple, in the tabernacle, is the highest quality olive oil. It's what we would call extra virgin olive oil. Okay, and that's what the zach means. Okay, so we saw two translations. We saw pure and we saw clear. And that would be from the first pressing of the olives. Okay, you're going to get the highest quality oil. It's going to be clear. It's going to be low in acidic. It's going to be low in acidity. And it's going to be very good quality oil. Okay, and the katit, the beaten part, let's talk about that now. So let's go and see what Robert Alter says, because I remember he has something to say about that. So let's read what he has to say. So olive oil would have been the most expensive kind of oil in the ancient Near East. Sesame oil was cheaper and more common. And in contrast to ordinary practice in which cloudy oil would be used for burning and clear oil for clear culinary purposes, that's what we said right now, right? The cloudy oil, the third pressing, the pumice oil, is used usually for burning because it's inedible, but it can be used for candles or for lamps. Only the best oils to be burned in the lamps, right? So that's pretty much what we said. The olives are to be beaten, katit, with mortar and pestle rather than crushed in a press. The latter being a less labor-intensive process. Okay, well, there we go. So in his opinion, it's not put in a press at all. They're just beaten until the oil comes out. Okay. Egypt, it should be noted, did not typically cultivate olive trees, and it imported olive oil at a premium from Canaan and Phoenicia. It is thus extremely unlikely that the fleeing slaves would have been able to bring with them supplies of fine olive oil or to obtain it in the wilderness. So this instruction is another clear instance in which a detail of the later Jerusalem cult is retrojected into the wilderness period. Well, that's his, secular academic point, right? Which is important to know. I listen to a lot of secular academic, just as a side note, secular academic lectures and talks on the Torah a lot, for a number of reasons. Number one, some of them are great. Okay, if you know how to separate if you know how not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, or if you know how to separate the wheat from the chaff, you can get a lot of information out of secular Torah lectures, even if those people do not believe in the divinity or even the antiquity of the Torah. And number two reason I listen to them is because it's important to know what the typical academic take on the Torah and on the Tanakh is, right? So all academics pretty much, maybe there are a couple of exceptions, usually say that the Tanakh was written at a much later date. They point to different times. I've heard the 5th century, some of the 7th century. It all depends who you're listening to and what book you're talking about. But generally, they believe that the Torah was written at a much later date. Some will even say as late as the Rabbinical period, right? Because they speak about the meeting in Yavna where the Tanakh was codified. At any rate, so we have to understand a lot of times when we read these secular academic interpretations that they're going to stick in their typical academic view, which is, once again, that the Torah was written at a later period, and therefore a lot of later stuff is thrown in. So that's his take on it. Okay. All right. At any rate, yeah. So that's that. Let's take a look at Ibn Ezra, one of my favorite commentators, and see what he has to say about Zach and Katit, because he's great. He's an amazing, amazing commentator. Oops. So we're in Exodus chapter 27. Tetzaveh. See if there's anything that I want to note here. Well, I'll just read this in English because he has a lot of insight. Okay. I'll first note, so I'm reading now, this is the Ibn Ezra on 27:20. And you shall command. I will first note the reason for the position of this Torah portion. After God finished enumerating all the holy utensils, the veil, the tabernacle, the tent, the cover, and the altar of the burnt offering. That was last week's parsha. The courtyard and the screen. He commenced to deal with those who ministered in the tabernacle. That's what we're going to be talking about in this week's parsha. The Kohanim, the priests, and their garments. He explained the service which they alone were to perform. Them. No stranger was to perform the service alongside them. God opened with the command that they cause a lamp to burn using pure oil. They were not to employ any other oil. It is only fitting that those who ministered in the tabernacle were to be distinguished and set apart, both in family and in dress. Scripture lists the garments one after the other. Scripture then mentions that those who serve in the tabernacle were obligated to learn the service during the 7 days of consecration. Moses was to teach and train them. After this, the priests would serve in the tabernacle. They would offer the daily burnt offerings They were not to offer it upon the golden altar. The priests were to offer only incense upon the golden altar. Okay, so basically he's giving a summary there. All right, let's see if we have anything else that he wants to say. I'm going to skip that. So it says Tamid. Well, we'll get to that. I'm going to skip that. And that's it. He doesn't actually have anything to say about Zach and Katit. Okay, but we get the idea, okay, what Zach and Katit are, okay? So it's the highest quality oil, right? The top quality oil. That's what's to be used in the tabernacle. Okay, any comments, any questions? Anybody? Okay, let's see if we can maybe get a video going here. The menorah in the temple. And let's see if we can find anything. Tabernacle construction, golden menorah. I'm just picking one at random. I have no idea what's going to be. We'll give it a shot. All right, so I've got to share the screen a little bit differently. And let's see what we got here. Oh. No, I don't think that's the one I wanted. 1 second. Yep, 1 second here. What happened? There's my golden menorah one.
And thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold, of beaten work shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knobs, and his flowers shall be of the same. And 6 branches shall come out of the sides of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side. 3 bowls made like unto almonds, with a knob and a flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch, with a knob and a flower. So in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick shall be 4 bowls made like unto almonds, with their knobs and their flowers. And there shall be a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, and a knob under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceed out of the candlestick. Their knobs and their branches shall be of the same. All it shall be one beaten work of pure gold. And thou shalt make the 7 lamps thereof, and they shall light the lamps thereof, that they may give light over against it. And the tongs thereof, and the snuff dishes thereof, shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold shall he make it, with all these vessels. And look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount.
Okay, so that was actually from last week's parsha. It didn't speak about the olive oil, but still, it gives us a visualization of the menorah. Maybe we'll try one more. The menorah and Jesus. No, we're going to skip that one. Lighting the way. Golden menorah 3D animation. I think that's the one we just looked at. The golden lampstand. How long is this one? 154. Let's look at one more.
You shall also make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand shall be of hammered work. Its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornamental knobs, and flowers shall be of one piece. And 6 branches shall come out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other side. 3 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms on one branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on the other branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and so for the 6 branches that come out of the lampstand. On the lampstand itself, 4 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms, each with an ornamental knob and flower. And there shall be a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that extend from the lampstand. Their knobs and their branches shall be of one piece. All of it shall be of one hammered piece of pure gold. You shall make 7 lamps for it, and they shall arrange its lamps so that they give light in front of it. And its wick trimmers and their trays shall be of pure gold. And it shall be made of a talent of pure gold with all these utensils. And see to it that you make them according to the pattern which was shown you on the mountain.
Okay, so once again, that was actually from last week's parsha, but good enough. I think we get the idea here. Okay, there's obviously a lot more to say about it, but we'll leave it at that. So, any questions, any comments regarding these verses that we've considered so far? Let me just reshare. Okay, if not, then we'll go on. Okay, so chapter 28. So now we get into the garments for the priests. And again, what I'm going to try to do as much as possible is use videos, pictures to visualize it, or else it just becomes boring, snooze-inducing text. And we definitely don't want that, right? Okay. So here we have a statement of who the Kohanim, who the priests are going to be, okay? Later, there's the induction ceremony of the priests, but right now, we're just being told, perhaps for the first time ever, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I might have made a note of this last year. Let me just see something. Just give me 1 second. Jethro, tabernacle materials, translations, animal terms. No, I made a note of it somewhere, but I don't remember. At any rate, this might actually be the first time we're being told that Aaron and his sons are going to be the priests. I'd have to look that up. But what it says here in chapter 28, verse 1, We'ata hakrev elecha et Aaron ahicha wa'eth banao ito mitoch bnei Yisrael lekahanoli Aaron Nadav we avihu el Azar wa Itamar bnei Aaron. Okay, so now krev, bring close to you. Okay, make approach to you. Karov, the underlying root here. Kuf resh vav Karav means to bring close in modern Hebrew and ancient Hebrew. Actually, if I want to say, let's say the supermarket is close by, I say hamakolet. It's not supermarket, but the market. Hamakolet karov elecha. The market is close to you. So karov means close. Akrev means to bring close. It's what's called the causative form of the verb, to cause to make close, cause to be close. Okay, so bring close to you, and they usually translate this as, let's see here, take. That's a bad translation. Doesn't matter. Bring close to you. Okay, Aaron, your brother, and his sons. Okay, from among the children of Israel. In other words, select out for you Aaron and his sons for the children of Israel. Likahano li. Okay, to serve me as priests, to be priests for me. Okay, Kohen is a general term for priest in Hebrew. We saw, for instance, that Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, was a Kohen of Midian. He was a Kohen in Midian, right? So that's not even speaking about a Kohen to to our God, to the God of Israel, Yahweh. That was speaking about a priest to his own God, right? The God of Midian, or whatever God he worshipped. Okay, and here are the four sons of Aaron: Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, Itamar. Two of them, Nadav and Avihu, are going to meet an untimely death. We'll get to that. And then the remaining two will be Elazar and Itamar. So ultimately, Elazar will take over for Aharon, because Elazar will be the oldest of the remaining two sons of Aaron's four sons. Okay? Verse 2. We asita birde kodesh la'Aharon ahicha le'kavod hu le'tifaret. Okay? And you shall make holy garments for Aaron, your brother, for honor and for glory, is the way this is usually translated. Let's see how Robert Alter translates that one. So this is 28:2. For glory and for splendor. Pe'er is the underlying root there. Pe'er means like wonder, glory, splendor. Okay. Verse 3. وأعطاك تدبر القول ححمي ليف أشر ملتيف روح خما وعصو إت بغدي أهرون لقدشو لخحنولي. And you shall speak to all those kol chochmei lev, literally those who are wise of heart. Asher miletiv ruach chochma, who I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. Okay, so these are the ones who are going to make all of these garments, right? These are going to be people who have like the spirit in them, so to speak, to make these garments, right? They've been filled with wisdom. They've been filled with the spirit of wisdom by God, and they're the ones who are going to be the artisans to make these garments. Okay, so and you shall make the garments of Aaron, which is the garments of Aaron, but it really means for all of the priests, to sanctify him, and so that he may be a priest, or so that he minister as a priest unto me. Okay, verse 4. وَإِلَهَ بِغَدِيم أَشَرْ يَعَسُوا هُشًن وَإِفَض وَمَعِيل وكتونت تشبيتس مسنفت وعدنت وعصوا بغدي قادش الأرون أحقيقة ولبناو لكهنولي. Okay, so we have all these different vessels which are going to be spoken about. These are the clothes, or the garments. I shouldn't say vessels, garments, which they shall do. Who shall do? The ones who have been filled with the spirit of wisdom. Chochmei lev, okay? Those who have a wise heart, who I filled with the spirit of wisdom. That's God speaking. Who God is filled with the spirit of wisdom. Okay? So what are they going to do? They're going to do all these garments, and we'll speak about them one by one. Okay? The choshen, we'll speak about that. The ephod, the ma'il, the ketonet, the tashbetz, the mitznefet, the avnet. Okay, those are going to be all the garments that we're going to speak about. Oops. Okay. وهم يكخو ات ذهب وات تخلت وات حار غمان وات طلعت حشني وات تشش. And they shall take, what shall they take? Gold. So now it's talking about the various raw materials that are going to be needed for the garments. Okay, who's the they shall take? Those are these guys, the wise-hearted people who've been filled with the spirit of wisdom. Okay, these dudes over here. Okay, so what do we need for these garments? Zahav, gold, tchelet, blue dye. I'm sorry, blue dyed blue fabric, purple fabric, crimson fabric, shish. Again, translated differently. Here they translate as fine linen. I've seen it translated as orange. Again, we're not 100% sure what all of these things are and what they mean and what substances they're made out of, or if they're even specific substances. We spoke about that extensively last year. I'm not going to really get into it again this year, although it really is fascinating. Okay. But I will say that the techelet, the fabric that's dyed sky blue, we mentioned last week that there are 4 potential sources that we can identify for that fabric. And let me just bring that up. Here we go, techelet. So, oh shoot. Okay, so either the Hexaplex trunculus, which is a sea mollusk, sea snail, indigo, which is a plant that originally grows out in India. That's why it's called indigo. Okay, woad, which is a plant which I believe grows among the reeds in Egypt mostly, and so that's a plant. And lapis lazuli is a stone which has a sky blue color or dark blue color, not dark blue, sky blue color. Okay, so those are the 4 possible sources of the techelet. Argaman is translated as purple. Okay, Argaman most likely is referring to Tyrian purple, the purple that was made famous by the Phoenicians. Again, the Phoenicians, the translation of Phoenician is purple people, basically. Okay, and very possibly, although not definitely, again from this Hexaplex trunculus, from this sea mollusk. Let's get a picture of our little friend, the Hexaplex trunculus. Okay, get a nice slimy one. Yeah, there we go. That's a good one. So there we go. Okay. So that little guy, its shell is crushed, then it's left out in the sun. There's a whole process. I'd have to look it up again, but basically, this when you crush the shells of these mollusks, they produce a purple dye. This purple dye was known, or is known as to this day, as Tyrian purple. Again, we mentioned last week from the city of Tyre. The city of Tyre was one of the major, probably we could say the major Phoenician city, currently on the coast of Lebanon. And you can actually see the outskirts of Tyre from the northern border in Israel. If you go to the northern border, if you go to Rosh HaNikra, north of the city of Nahariya, and you look north, you can actually see, if you look along the coast, you can actually see the lights of Tyre. Okay, I think it's only about 20 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, north of the northern border of Israel. In fact, let's get a map going here. 1 second. So Tyre is mentioned many, many, many times in the Tanakh. It's called Tzur in ancient Hebrew. Not in ancient Hebrew, in modern Hebrew as well, in Hebrew. And there's Tyre. So there's Nahariya, the northernmost major coastal city in Israel. Nahariya is maybe 5 kilometers, maybe 2 or 3 miles from the northern border with Lebanon over here. Let's see if we can get. All right, what are we doing here? How do I do this? Layers. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, so there's Haifa. Okay, that's Mount Carmel, mentioned also many times in the Tanakh, especially known for where Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, is from. He was Nahariya. Okay, and so the distance between Nahariya and the northern border of Israel, Rosh HaNikra, an absolutely beautiful place, is maybe 5, maybe 10 kilometers. Looks like about 7 kilometers. Okay, and then there's Tyre, Sur, right there. Okay, in fact, it says in the Arabic Sur. That's a Sad, Wow, and Resh. Okay, Sur. So it's about looks like about 20 kilometers. So if you're standing here at Rosh Nikra, and you look to the right, at night you can see the lights of Tyre. So that's Tyre, Sur in Hebrew, okay? And that was probably the major Phoenician city. The Phoenicians didn't really have a kingdom. They had city-states, and Tyre, Sur, was one of the most famous ones, okay? Along with Sidon, which is a bit more north. Where's Sidon? There it is. There's Sidon. So Tur and Sidon are the two that are mentioned most commonly in the Torah, at least in that part. There's ones that are mentioned further south, belonging to the Philistines. But Philistines, Phoenicians, that's a whole big story, but we're not going to get into that. At any rate, then there's another one which later became not only the leading Phoenician city, but became one of the leading cities in the world. And for that, we've got to travel all the way down the west coast. I'm sorry, the east coast. No, the west coast. This coast of the Mediterranean Sea, past Egypt, past Libya. There's Benghazi. You Hillary Clinton fans certainly remember that. Out to Tripoli, into Tunisia, to Sfax, which we've been to Tunis. So on the northern coast, just to get it perspective here, okay, the northern coast of Africa. And right next to Tunis, you'll see a place called Carthage. So Carthage was originally right there. Carthage was originally, I would say originally, was eventually settled as an outpost or as a colony of the Phoenicians, and it grew into one of the major cities in the world, or I don't know about the world, but in the Western, the Mediterranean world. Okay, whole very interesting history, fascinating place to visit if you ever get a chance. And Carthage, so in Carthage they spoke a Semitic language, and Carthage actually, as I mentioned many times, because I remember it from visiting Carthage, Carthage actually means. So it's a shell that's used and not, Yoshi Ben says it's a shell that's used and not the muscle itself. That's different than I thought the crushed, no. I think the muscle is actually removed and then they crush the shell. I don't remember the entire process, but that's the basic idea. The shell is crushed. In fact, I think you have to use thousands and thousands of these shells to get just a small amount of dye, which is one of the reasons that the dye was so expensive. It's a whole fascinating history about Tyrian purple. As I mentioned last week, I think in some places and at some times it was illegal on pain of death to use Tyrian purple unless you were part of the nobility or the royalty. So it has an incredible history. I mean, the degree to which Tyrian purple shaped modern history is completely underestimated, because it was basically what the Phoenicians were known for most. Okay, their production of Tyrian purple. It made them and particularly eventually Carthage, the leading city in the world until it was destroyed by the Romans in the Punic Wars. There were 3 Punic Wars. If you've heard of those suckers, that's where you get the famous General Hannibal. Hannibal was a Carthaginian Phoenician general who made his way through the Iberian Peninsula and came very close to attacking Rome before he was turned back. And famously, he brought elephants, which the Romans had never seen. At any rate, whole big story. But the Punic Wars, there were 3 Punic Wars, which eventually ended in the complete destruction of Carthage. Basically, it was razed to the ground by the Romans by the end of the third Punic War in, I think, the 1st or 2nd century BCE. I'm a little bit rusty on it because we were in Carthage in 2018, and I did a whole bunch of videos on it on Facebook. Fascinating place. If you ever get a chance to go there. And Tunisia, by the way, is a great country. It's a lot of fun to be there. The people are really nice. The food is good. It's dirt cheap. I think it's probably the least expensive country that I've been to. I remember it was Morocco is extremely inexpensive, and I remember Tunisia being maybe even half as expensive as Morocco. I mean, very, very inexpensive. Okay, you can get a full meal there for like $10. Okay. Anywho, so yes, it's a shell that's used and crushed. I think I've gotten way off topic here. But what I did want to say before we get back on topic and I'll unwind here is that Carthage became the leading Phoenician city and one of the leading cities in the Mediterranean world until it was destroyed by the Romans. And the reason it became such, or one of the main reasons it became such, besides its very convenient location, was the production and export of Tyrian purple. Okay, so let's unwind here. I've gotten way off track, but that's okay. So as we said, getting back to our story here, Argaman is most likely Tyrian purple, or is very probably Tyrian purple. Tola'at Shani is usually translated as crimson. But literally what it means is Shani. Here they translate as scarlet, crimson. I've heard both translations. But Tola'at, the word in Hebrew for a worm, is Tola'ah. So it very possibly means crimson that's made by crushing. They usually translate as a worm. But we learned last year extensively that it's most likely a what's called a scale bug, if I remember correctly. At any rate, it's a certain insect that's crushed up, and that creates the scarlet dye. And then shesh is often translated as orange, but there's a fancier word for orange, which I can't remember right now. But it basically an orange color. But we also said that this may be what are called the byssal threads of mussels, not muscles, but mussels, mussels. Another sea creature, another marine creature, right? And the byssal threads are what allow the mussel to attach to substrates such as rock or the sea bottom. And it's possible that those threads were used to create also a dye. So what we have here is, if this is the case, if tchelet is made from the hexaplex trunculus, I don't think that's the case, by the way, because the hexaplex trunculus was not used to make tchelet generally. But let's say it was. Argaman very possibly was from the hexaplex trunculus, our little sea mollusk friend, this little guy over here. Oh, I already erased him. This comes from a worm or a scale bug, and this comes from a mussel, mussel. That means that if that's the case, all four of these creatures are what we would call in today's parlance non-kosher creatures, right? And yet dyes were extracted from their bodies to use in the temple. And we've spoken about this before, right? We're not eating them, okay? And we're not even really using their bodies. We're just using the dyes extracted from their bodies, okay? Okay, so, and by the way, this goes on to this day. If you ever have, now I have to look it up. Let's see. Red dye made from crushed bugs. There we go. Carminic acid. So, yeah, typically, here, I'll just read it. Typically, 17 to 24% of dried insects' weight can be extracted from the body and eggs and mixed with aluminum or calcium salts to make carmine dye, also known as cochineal. Today, carmine is primarily used as a colorant in food and lipstick. So watch out for these suckers. If you see in the European Union E120, or if you see in the United States of America natural red 4, you are eating dye that's extracted from the crushed bugs of an insect. Okay. So the point is, it goes on to this day, right? Bugs, I mean, all kinds of creatures are used to this day to dye. In that case, it's dyeing food, so you're actually eating it. Okay. All right, let's get back to here. So those are the things that, the raw materials that are needed for the garments of the Levites. Again, gold, blue fabrics, purple fabrics, crimson fabrics, and orange fabrics. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the ephod. What is the ephod? We'll talk about, I'll show a picture, okay, but let's read a couple of verses here. Let's get a little bit of Robert Alter going, see if he has anything to say about these verses. Okay. Okay, so it's previous chapter. Now we're in 28. Oops. Chapter 28 notes. Oops. No, I want chapter 28 text here. Oh, I can do it this way. Here are the notes. Let's move this sucker over to the left. All right, so first of all, Robert Alter translates those thingies as gold and the indigo and the purple and the crimson and the linen, right? So he clearly is not committing to a, at least it would seem, he's implying that they're just colors and not committing to a certain source of how those colors were made. Okay. However, we want to look up here. See if there's anything interesting to say here. All right, well, we haven't gotten up to verse 4 yet, but this is what he says. Oh, we did already get up to verse 4. All right, this is what he says. The ancient audience of this text had an immense advantage over modern readers because it would have had some actual glimpses of all this splendid raiment and priestly ornamentation, and thus would have had a concrete notion of what was being referred to. Right. So basically what he's saying is we don't really know what these things were. As so many other things, unfortunately, in the Torah, there are a lot of educated guesses. And that's why if you see different pictures or different descriptions or different commentaries, everything is going to look different, right? Because it's just educated guesses. There have been endless latter-day efforts to reconstruct the wardrobe and to parse the technical sartorial. I don't even know what that word means. Again, he's used another word that I have no idea what it means. Look up sartorial. Whatever it means, terms that are used to represent it, but these can be no more than amalgams of guesses and approximations. So basically he's saying we really don't know what these garments are, and that's an important point. We don't. It's just educated guesses. Though the present translation assumes that breastplate is still plausible for the Hebrew choshen, others contend it is a smaller breast piece or even a pouch. The ephod, the Hebrew would suggest binding or wrapping around, evidently was a kind of apron. Although opinions differ on this, it has a secondary meaning as an oracular device, as we'll see. It's where the Urim and Tumim are going to be attached to. Okay, so let's get a picture, even though we just saw that we don't know exactly what all these garments are, we could still get a picture. I think this is one we used last year. How do I make this bigger? Smaller. Okay, well, anyway, there we go. So this is the ephod, okay? The ephod is this most outer garment, this thing that, well, it has crosses in this depiction. How interesting. Let's get a better picture. There we go. So the ephod is this outer garment, okay? Well, here it is. It's got crosses, right? But it's a thing with the crosses on it in this picture. Over here, it's that outer garment thingy, right? And that's what we're going to be speaking about here, okay? I think, let me read a couple of verses, then I'll run a video. Hopefully I can find the video that we used last year that describes the garments. But at any rate, wa'asu et ha'ephod, and ephod here is just translated as ephod because nobody knows what it is. Zahav, tchelet, wa'argaman, tol'at shani, washesh, mashzar, ma'aseh, hoshev. So you shall make it, ephod, and it's going to be made with gold, blue, purple, crimson, fine linen, and fine woven linen. Okay, ma'aseh hoshev, the work of an artisan. Verse 7. Shte ketefot chovrot ye'elo el shnei ketavotav wahhubar. So there are going to be two. Here they translated shoulder straps. A katef is literally shoulder, so two shoulders joined together. It shall have el shnei ketavotav wahhubar. at its two edges, and it shall be joined, and it shall be binded together in that way. All right. So what are we talking about here? Let's see if we can see a picture. That doesn't really show it. Maybe there. I can't find a good picture, but basically bound together at the shoulders, right? Like over here. Okay. Okay, verse 8. وحشف أفوداتو أشير علاو كمعسه ممنو يه زهاv تخيلت وارجمان طلعت الشاني والشيش مشزار. And the design of his ephod. Let's see how Robert Alter translates that one. Cheshev. Fastening band that's on it. Here they translate cheshev, intricately woven. So we're getting all kinds of different definitions. Okay, I'll just go through. The fastening band of the ephod, of his ephod, asher alav, that is upon him. So there's a fastening band. Kima'asehu shall be as the kima'asehu, as it is done, meaning as the ephod is done, mimenu. To make a long story short, this is saying that the fastening band is going to be made from the same materials, or is going to have the same pattern as the ephod itself, right? So what are we talking about here? The fastening band. Let's see if we can get a good picture. I don't see a good picture of it here. Here. I can't exactly see here. All right, let's go on. So that part that's going to kind of fasten it together, fasten the two parts together, is going to be made from the same materials. That's basically what that says. Verse 9. وَلَقَحْتَ إِتْ شْتَيْ عَبْنَي شُهَامْ وَإِتْبِتَحْدَ عَلَيْهِمْ شِمُوت بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. Okay, so you shall take two onyx stones, or let's see how Robert Alter translates that one. Carnelian stones. Let's get a picture of carnelian. Okay. Let's get a picture of onyx. That's a more common translation. Okay. So again, it's not clear exactly what it is, but you're going to take two of these stones, avnei shoham, some type of stone, onyx or carnelian, and you shall engrave upon them the names of the children of Israel. Shisha mishmotam al ha'even ha'echad ha'echad wa'et shemot ha'shisha hanot tarim al ha'even ha'shenit kitolodotam. So 6 of their names on one stone, and the remaining 6 on the second stone, according to their order of birth. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Let's see if we can find it in the picture. Let's see. Maybe I'll just go to this site here. See if I can get this picture. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So this is good because it points out the various verses, okay? So take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the son of Israel. So here we go. Okay, those are the 2 stones that it's speaking about, okay? So that's on the ephod. The ephod is this outermost garment, okay? So that's what we're speaking about right there, okay? These 2 stones, right here where it says, take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel. Exodus 28, 9-10. That's what we read right now. Verse 11, Ma'aseh Harash, Evan, Pituhai Chotam. Oh, it's hot in here. I gotta take this off. Ma'aseh Harash, so the work of an engraver. Evan, Pituhai Chotam, stones that are, we'll get to this, that are developed or that are made like a signet or an engraving. Tiftach et shnei avanim al shemot bnei Israel musabot mishubatzot zahav ta'aseh otam. All right, let's just get an English translation because a lot of technical words there. So that's 11. So lapidary work, that means stonework. Seal engravings, you shall engrave on the two stones the names of Israel's sons, encased in filigree of gold, you shall make them. Okay? We'll move on. Verse 12. Wasanta et shte ha vanim al kitfot ha efod avnei zikaron livnei Israel ונשא אהרון את שמותם לפני יהוה על שתי כתפיו לזיכרון. And you shall place these two stones on the shoulders of the ephod. Avnei zikaron, they will be stones of remembrance or stones of memory or stones of mentioning, Livnei Israel, of the stones of remembrance of the children of Israel. And Aaron, v'nasa Aaron et shemotam, and Aaron shall bear their names, Livnei Yahweh, shall bear their names or carry their names before Yahweh, al shtei ketefav, on his two shoulders as a remembrance. Okay, so basically when Aaron goes in to speak to God or to worship before God, then he's going to have the names of the 12 tribes of Israel on his shoulders so that they're remembered before God, or maybe that he remembers them as he speaks to God. Okay, so again, if we look at that here, let's see. Right, so we said there were two parts of the ephod that were joined at the shoulders, okay? And then on the shoulders we have these stones, and then gold, and then gold, stone set in gold, and then on the stone is the engraving of the 12 tribes. Okay, that's basically what it's describing. We'll do two more verses, and then I'll try to get some pictures and videos up, or else we're all going to go crazy. Okay, wa'asita mishpatzot zahav. So they usually translate this as like a lattice work. Settings is how they translate it here. Okay, you shall make settings of gold. Wishtei shasharot zahav ta'or mig balot ta'aseh otam. And so 2 chains of pure gold, of braided pure gold, you shall make them ma'aseh avot. So a work of cord, v'natata et shasharot avot al hamishpatzot, and you shall make the chain of cord upon the settings. So what are we talking about there? Let's see if we can see it in the picture. I'm not sure if you can see it in the picture, but we'll try to get to a video. Okay, so that's the ephod. So what are we talking about here? The ephod is the outermost garment. It's this thing on the outside. On it is gold. Inside the gold is onyx or carnelian stone, 2, 1 on each shoulder, and then engraved into that stone are the names of the 12 tribes. Okay, let's see if we can get a nice video going. Okay, basically garments. Okay, in Exodus 28, we could try this one. We'll give it a whirl. Let's see what we got. All right, so we've got to stop this. Present, share screen. Home tab, Exodus, Jewish priestly garments. And off.
And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, and for beauty. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple, of scarlet, and fine twined linen with cunning work. It shall have the two shoulder pieces thereof joined at the two edges thereof, and so it shall be joined together. And the curious girdle of the ephod which is upon it shall be of the same, according to the work thereof, even of gold, of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. And thou shalt take 2 onyx stones, and grave on them the names of the children of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and the other 6 names of the rest on the other stone, according to their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet, shalt thou engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel. Thou shalt make them to be set in ouches of gold. And thou shalt put the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial unto the children of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord upon his 2 shoulders for a memorial. And thou shalt make ouches of gold, and 2 chains of pure gold at the ends. Of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work. After the work of the ephod thou shalt make it, of gold, of blue.
Okay, so just to point out that that covers the verses we just read. Now we get to the breastplate. So I'm going to run the video a little bit more through the breastplate, and that way when we go through the verses, we'll already have that in our mind a little bit. Okay, and I'll probably run it a couple more times. Okay, so let me bring it back just a drop.
Of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work. After the work of the ephod thou shalt make it, of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of fine twined linen shalt thou make it. 4 square it shall be, being doubled. A span shall be the length thereof, and a span shall be the breadth thereof. And thou shalt set in it settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This shall be the first row. And the second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold in their enclosings. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet. Every one with his name shall they be according to the 12 tribes. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate chains at the ends
Let's stop
of
there.
wreathen work of.
And we'll bring it back, and we'll try to refer to this video as we read this. So let me just bring it up to the point where we were.
Of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches.
Okay, we'll stop there. Okay, so I've got to stop the screen. Do this like so. Window, Twitter, share. There we go. Okay, so let's try to go through and we can refer back to that video. Okay, so verse 15. Asita Hoshen Mishpat. So Hoshen is usually translated as breastplate, but again, it's not really known what it means. I think Robert Alter stated that. Let's find what he said again. So here, this is what he says. Though the present translation assumes that breastplate is still plausible for the Hebrew Hoshen, etymology uncertain. Others contend it is a smaller breast piece or even a pouch. The ephod, the Hebrew word, suggests binding or wrapping around. It evidently was a kind of apron, although opinions differ on this. It has a secondary meaning as an oracular device. Okay, let's see if Ibn Ezra has anything to say about the word Hoshen. So we are in 28:15. An amazing Torah commentator, unlike the other guy I have up here, Rashi, one of the worst Torah commentators out there, which is exactly why the rabbis love him so much. They like to obscure the truth. It falls right into their agenda. Okay, so 28:15. (28:14). No, he doesn't have anything to say about that. Okay, now let's just, for kicks and giggles, let's read Rashi. Once in a while, Rashi has something relevant to say, but most often he doesn't. Absolutely horrible commentator. So Exodus 28. And we're in 15. That atones for the perversion of justice or error in judgment. That, I don't think, that's ridiculous. There's no indication of that anywhere. So he's trying to explain why it's called the Choshen HaMishpat, why it's called the breastplate of judgment. And he says because it atones for the distortion or the error in judgment. No. Baloney. Another explanation of why it's called the breastplate is because it makes statements clear. The breastplate of judgment is because it makes statements clear, definite, so that there can be no doubt about their meaning and its promise is true. Discernment in Old French, blah, blah, blah. Because the word mishpat is used in 3 sentences, the contention, I can't even read it anymore. It's so stupid I can't even read it. Okay. Kimase ephod. So that's also in 15. Right. So you shall make the breastplate of judgment. Ma'aseh choshev, the work of an artisan. Kimase ephod, like the work of the ephod. In other words, the same material as the ephod. And we could see that here in the picture. Well, you can't see it. We saw it better in the video. Okay, we'll get to it in a second. That this breastplate over here, okay, is made from the same material, right? You see all those different threads twined together, right? We have the chelet, we have the sky blue, we have the purple, we have the crimson, and we have the shesh, the orange, perhaps. Okay, so anyway, the breastplate is to be made from that same type of material. Okay, so ta'asenu zahav, techelet, and also gold. I forgot to say. Okay, so and it explains there. Okay, those are the same materials that the ephod was made from: gold and sky blue and purple and crimson and fine twined linen. Okay, verse 16. So ra'ua i'eh aful zeret arko wazeret rohbo. So it's going to be a doubled square. And we saw in the video that their interpretation of that meant it was folded over, and when it was folded over, it became a square. Watch the video again in a second. Zeret arko wazeret rohbo, a handbreadth its length and a handbreadth its width. And as we saw in the video, a handbreadth is usually if you stretch out your pinky and your thumb, then the distance between the pinky and the thumb is usually what's understood as a handbreadth. Okay. Umilet minuat even arba'a turim avin tur odem. Okay, so now you're going to fill it with setting stones, minuat even, or settings of stone, arba'a turim, four rows. and 4 rows of stone. And here's the first row. And now we have different types of stone mentioned. Okay. So the first row is Tur, Odem, Pit Da, U Baraket, which are different types of stones. The translation here is Odem is translated as sardius here, Pit Da as topaz, Baraket as emerald, and oops, I skipped one. I'm sorry, 3 stones in the first row. It's 4 rows of 3 stones each. Okay. So, and then we go on to have different words that describe the different stones. Okay, I'll just read through it and then maybe we'll take a look at the video again. Okay, so the second row, we atur ha shini nofech sapir. Sapir is usually understood as sapphire, and the word sapphire is, of course, comes from the Hebrew word sapir, from the Semitic root sapir, or Semitic word sapir. We halom, diamond. Verse 19, Watur shlishi leshem shivo ach loma. So leshem here is translated as jacinth, agate, amethyst. But again, you read different commentaries, you're going to get it. Every commentary you read is probably going to have a different translation of these stones. Again, nobody knows exactly what the stones were. Watur revi'i tarshish, shoham, yoshfe. So these are, Tarshish is translated here as beryl, shoham, onyx, yashfe is jasper, mishubatzim zahav ye miluatam. They shall be set in gold. That shall be their setting. Okay? All right. Maybe one more verse. We vonim ti'ena al shemot b'nei Israel, shtem asrei al shemotam pituhe hotam. So the stones shall be on the stone, on the names of the children of Israel. They shall have the names of the children of Israel. 12 for their names. The engraving like a signet. Each person, meaning each tribe, according to its name, shall be for the 12 tribes. Okay? So let's watch the video again, dealing just with this part. So this is the Choshen HaMishpat, usually translated as the breastplate of judgment, from here to here. And let's look at that part of the video. I believe it will come up with the sound. Oops. Wait. 1 second. Let's try that again. Back, just drop. One more time. Okay, so that's that. Let me stop that. Okay, so that part of the video is verses 15 through 21. Let's go on to 22. Any questions, any comments so far? Anybody want to ask a question? Okay, let's go on. Verse 22. Wa'asita al hoshen sharot gavlut ma'aseh avot zahav tahor. So you shall make upon the breastplate chains. Here they translate it as at the end, ma'aseh avot, a work of a braided work of pure gold. Let's get Robert Alter on that one. So that's 22. And shall make on the breastplate intertwined cordwork chains of pure gold. Okay. Verse 23. ועשית על החושן שתי טבעות זהב, ונתת על את שתי הטבעות על שני קצות החושן. So you shall make upon the breastplate שתי טבעות זהב, 2 rings of gold, ונתת את שתי הטבעות על שני קצות החושן. And you shall place the 2 rings upon the 2 edges, or the 2 extremities, or the 2 borders of the breastplate. And we'll see that in the video. Okay? Verse 24, ונתת את שתי אבותות הזהב על שני הטבעות אל קצות החושן. And you shall place or put the 2 cords, here they translate as braided chains, okay, the braided chains, azahav, the 2 gold braided chains on the 2 rings at the edge of the choshen. Again, we'll see this in the video. I'm going to go through this because to sit here and explain it is just going to be kind of a waste of time. We'll see it in the video. תיתן על שתי המשפצות ונתת על כתבות האפוד אל מול פניו. And the 2 edges of the 2 braided chains you shall put on the shtei mishpatzot, on the 2 settings, ונתת על כתפות האפוד, and you shall place them on the shoulders of the ephod el mul panav, before its face. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to describe it. We'll see it in the video. Okay. Verse 26. ועשית שתי טבעות זהב, ושמת אותם על שני קצות החושן על שפתו, אשר על עבר האפוד בית ביתה. And you shall ועשית שתי טבעות זהב, and you shall make 2 rings of gold, ושמת אותם על שני קצות החושן, you shall place them on the 2 extremities, or the 2 borders of the breastplate, על שפתיו, at its, literally its lip, but on its edge, אשר על עבר האפוד ביתה, which is on the inner side of the ephod. Literally, the beit baita means in the house, or the inside. Okay. Verse 27, ועשית שתי טבעות זהב, ונתת אותם על שתי כתפות האפוד מלמטה ממול פניו לעומת מחברתו ממעל לחשב האפוד. And you shall make 2 rings of gold, נתת אותם על שתי כתפות האפוד, and you shall place them on the 2 shoulders of the ephod מלמטה, from the bottom, ממול פניו, from across its face, its front side, לעומת מחברתו, across from, here they translate this as seam, מעל לחשב האפוד, across from its seam, from across the intricate work of the ephod. I'm going to go on. Verse 28, וירקסו את החושן טבעותיו אל טבעות האפוד בפתיל תכלת, and you shall bind, or you shall attach the breastplate from using its rings, or from its rings al tabaot ephod, to the rings of the ephod. So the breastplate is going to be attached to the ephod. Remember, the ephod was that outer garment that we spoke about earlier. The petil techelet, with a thread of sky blue. And I will point out that this is also the same word that's used to describe what is to be placed on the tzitzit, on the corners of the garment, on the borders of the garment. We're supposed to place tzitzit. We're supposed to place also cord work, although here it doesn't explicitly say we're supposed to place braided cord with a patil techelet, with a thread of blue. So that's what we call the tzitzit, right? So one of the understandings of that patil techelet, of that threaded blue, is that it relates back to this thread of blue that's mentioned here in the priestly garment, which is connecting the ephod, which again is the outer garment, to the choshen hamishpat, to the breastplate of judgment. Okay, liot al cheshev ephod, that's going to be on the intricate work of the ephod, velo iza choshen me'al ephod, and so that the breastplate should not move above the ephod. Does not come loose, they translate this here. Okay, verse 29. ונשא אהרון את שמות בני ישראל בחושן המשפט, and Aaron shall bear or shall carry the names of the children of Israel בחושן המשפט, al libo, upon his heart. So Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel on the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, bivo'o el hakodesh, when he goes into the holy place, lizikaron lifnei Yahweh tamid, as a remembrance before Yahweh tamid. In other words, again, he shall Yahweh shall remind God of the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. Shall remind God of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? Cause God to remember the 12 tribes of Israel, so ostensibly so that he'll have mercy on them. He'll remember them and want to have mercy on them, I think is the idea here. Okay? What else did I want to say? This is the second place we saw that this is mentioned, that Aaron bears the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. We also saw it on those two shoulder plates, right? Remember, on the shoulder of the ephod, there were two stones, onyx stones or cornelian stones, which were set in gold. On one is the names of 6 tribes, and on the other is the names of the other 6 tribes. Okay, so here we have the choshen hamishpat. We have here the 4 rows of 3 tribes each, set in 12 different types of stone. And so Aaron is carrying 2 sets of the names of the 12 tribes, one on his shoulders, 6 and 6, and one on the breastplate of judgment, 3, 3, 3, and 3. Okay? Okay. Verse 30, ונתת את חושן המשפט את האורים, ונתת אל חושן המשפט את האורים ואת התומים. So he shall place upon the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Tumim. We're going to just translate this now as Urim and Tumim. Nobody knows exactly what they are. There's a whole bunch of different opinions. We'll get to that in a second. وَحَيُّ لَב אהרון בבואו לפני יהוה, נשא אהרון את משפט בני ישראל אל על ליבו לפני יהוה תמיד. And so it shall be upon the heart of Aaron when he comes before Yahweh. ונשא אהרון את משפט בני ישראל, and Aaron shall carry the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart, lifnei Yahweh tamid. Okay, so what does this mean? We know that this thing is called the choshen mishpat, the breastplate of judgment, and here it says that Aaron shall carry the judgment of the children of Israel when he goes into upon his heart when he goes into God. Okay, so again, even though it says judgment, which would imply kind of a harsh judgment against Israel, it's my opinion that whenever we are trying to be remembered before God, that's always so that God will have mercy upon us, right? So I think the idea here is that God should judge favorably, perhaps. In other words, when Aaron comes in and he has the names of the children of Israel on his heart, and he's the names of the children of Israel on his shoulders, he's remembering them, right? Zikaron lifnei Yahweh tamid, as an eternal or as an eternal remembrance or a reminder of them before Yahweh. So the idea here, in my opinion, is that when Aaron goes in and he's bearing the names of the children of Israel, then when God gives judgment, he'll give merciful judgment because he'll remember, right? God, Aaron, by wearing the names, is causing God to remember the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, and therefore to remember his love for the patriarchs, for Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob's 12 children, and so therefore would give favorable judgment. That's almost always the idea, right? When we have a zikaron of the children of Israel before God. Okay, so for instance, what the rabbis call Rosh Hashanah, what the Torah calls Yom Teruah, is also called Zikaron Teruah, right? Where we're remembering, we're causing God to remember us by blowing the shofar or making other noises before Yahweh on the first day of the seventh month, and this is causing God but when He remembers the children of Israel, He wants to have mercy towards them, right? He's not going to judge them harshly, so that when Yom Kippurim comes, okay, we're asking God at that point to, and I've spoken about this in a number of articles that I've written, we're asking God at that point to forget the sins of the children of Israel. So when He's now on the first day of the seventh month remembered the children of Israel, right, and remembered His love for the patriarchs and for the children of Jacob, and then finally when on the 10th day of the seventh month, when He could potentially be judging us. And again, Yom Kippurim is really about the mistakes. It's about cleansing the temple for the mistakes that were made in purifying the temple. But at any rate, that is worthy of death. But God is going to forget that, because on the first day of the seventh month, He's remembered for good. He's thought about His love and remembered, and He's been reminded of the 12 children of Israel, and He's remembered His love for the patriarchs. So that's the idea, in my opinion. Whenever the Torah speaks about remembering Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, or the 12 children of Jacob before Yahweh, it's always to remember them for good, or to remind Yahweh of them and of His love that He had for the patriarchs, and so therefore to not judge them harshly. In other words, to be merciful towards them, and even to forgive and forget their sins. Okay, that being said, so we'll pick it up in the video from, where were we? Well, watch the whole thing again. So now we're going to watch the video. I'll roll the part again about the Choshen Mishpat, about the breastplate of judgment. And then we have the cords that are tying that are attaching the breastplate of judgment, the Choshen Mishpat, to the ephod, to that outer garment. Okay, so let's run that again. And then I'm going to take a break for 5 minutes because I've got to go get the charger. And I need it. You know what? I'm going to start it right from the beginning. So let's do that. So this is the part of the verses we just read. Okay, let's stop there. So that covers up to the verses we just read. What tribe am I from? I don't know. I'm Jewish. I was born and raised Jewish, so maybe from the tribe of Judah. Let's hope. That's all I could say. All my grandparents, as far back as I can trace, only Jews on both sides of the family, and I've been able to trace back on my father's side about 5 generations, and on my mother's side about 4 generations. So that's the most I can say. I'm Jewish, very Jewish. All right, I'm gonna take a break now for 2 minutes while I get the power cord and drink some water and to stretch. So we'll reconvene in about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's say 10 minutes or so, 7 minutes approximately, and we will continue. I'll put on some music.
nos lleva España, ¿quién abrirá sus puertas? Donde guarda un pueblo sin alma todas sus horas muertas. Vienen de dos en dos las carretas llorando su herida de amor a perderse en los ojos de la luna sefardita. En el jardín de la reina ha crecido un biliuzar. La raíz tiene de oro la simiente de cristal. Arboleros, arboleros, arboleros tan gentil. La raíz tiene de oro la simiente sentado en la ventana el payaso del habido enribade una barca asentado biliusa cantando una romance a la ola de la mar.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו תמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך אוי מתי תמלוך בציון בכל יום בימינו בכל יום בימינו אוי לעולם ותשכון ותתקדש זוהי ירושלים עירך לדור לדור ולנצח נצח ועינינו תראינה מלכותך כדברנו בשירי עוזיך בשירי עוזיך ועל ידי דוד ועל ידי דוד משיח צדקך
Okay. All right. Welcome back to the study, the World Alliance of Qara'im study. And we are up to Exodus chapter 28, verse 31. All right. Let me just put this. And let me share the screen again. Okay, so before we continue, anybody have any questions or anybody have any comments? Anybody? No? All right, then let's go on. So it's a very technical parsha. These next couple of weeks are going to be quite technical for the most part, but we'll try to make it, as we said, as visual as possible. So, okay, so we've gone now through the ephod. We've gone through the Choshen HaMishpat, the breastplate of judgment. We even spoke about the Urim and the Tumim. Boy, we could speak a lot about those. Maybe I'll speak a little bit about them. So that's verse 30. Let's see if Edmund Ezra has anything to say about that. Nope, he doesn't. I don't think. No, he doesn't have anything to say about that. We're not even going to bother with Rashi. What we could do is just look up different places where the Urim and the Tumim appear. So the first time they appear is right here in Exodus 28:30. We can look at a couple of other verses. So the Urim and the Tumim actually only occur 7 times in the entire Tanakh. And the BDV just has to say they were placed in the Choshen HaMishpat. We know that. And the BDV also has to say that this Choshen was a little bag or pouch worn on the breast of the high priest to hold the Urim and the Tumim. So we saw that in the video. Again, nobody really knows. So we can look at Numbers 27, 21. So Numbers 27, 21. Let me just get the English for a second so we just can get the context. Verse 18. So this is when Joshua takes over or is slated to take over from Moses. So Yahweh said to Moses, take Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the spirit of leadership, and lay your hand on him. Have him stand before Eleazar the priest and the entire assembly and commission him in their presence. Give him some of your authority so the whole Israelite community will obey him. And he is to stand before Eleazar the priest, who will obtain decisions for him by inquiring of the Urim before the Lord. Okay? At his command, he and the entire community of the Israelites will go out, and at his command, they will come in. So here the Urim and Tumim, Joshua, who doesn't have the same status as Moshe, has to acquire answers mostly regarding should we go out to such and such, should we go out to war against such and such nation, through the Urim and Tumim. Let's look at First Samuel 28. So this is dealing with Saul. And this is verse 6. So we'll start from verse 1. So in those days, so this is right before Saul's death. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces to fight against Israel. Achish said to David, "You must understand that you and your men will accompany me in the army." David said, "Then you will see for yourself what your servant can do." Achish replied, "Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life." I'm sorry, this is already after. A second. No, this is when he's about to die. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in his own town of Ramah, which many people believe is modern-day Ramallah. Saul had expelled the mediums and the spiritists from the land. The Philistines assembled and came and set up camp at Shunem. While Saul, is that Sufi? Oh, okay. Just keep her out though. While Saul, you can bring her in as long as she's quiet. While Saul gathered all Israel and set up camp at Gilboa. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid. Terror filled his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. So again, right, implies war. So this is the second time we saw the Urim and Tumim related to war, right? So the Urim and Tumim would say something like, should I go out against the Philistines? And perhaps the Urim and Tumim would answer yes or no. Saul then said to his attendants, "Find me a woman who is a medium so that I may go and inquire of her." And then he goes to the of Endor, the witch of Endor, or the medium of Endor. And basically she prophesies that he's going to die the next day in battle against the Philistines. And he does. And his son Jonathan as well, who is David's best friend. Okay, so now there are two places, right? In Numbers 27:21. And here in 1 Samuel 28:6, dealing with the witch of Endor, the Urim and Tumim are related to or associated with going out to war or not, right? Okay. Let's look then at Ezra. So that's it. Those are now we only have two other places where they occur, Ezra and Nehemiah. So Ezra 2:63. So this is basically a list of the people who came up from Babylon back to Judah. Okay, with Zerubbabel. Then we have a list of the priests, the Levites, the musicians. Asaph is mentioned many times in the Psalms. The gatekeepers of the temple servants, etc. And if we skip ahead, and from among the priests, we're going to start here in 61. The descendants of Hobaiah, Hakoz, Barzillai, a man who had married a daughter of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and was called by that name. So now we have people who claim to be priests, right? Or who are suspected or supposed to be priests. So they searched for their family records, but they could not find them, and so were excluded from the priesthood as unclean. But they could not prove that they were priests, right? So in this day and age, we have many people who call themselves priests, who call themselves Kohanim, but they'll swear up and down that they're Kohanim, but there's really no proof of it, right? Now, they're not serving in the temple, so it's not a matter of life or death, because only the descendants of Aaron are allowed to serve in the temple. There's no temple. But they do give the priestly blessing, right, which is supposed to be given by the priests in the synagogue. But okay, that's not punishable by death, I guess, to do that if you're not a priest, even though the priest is supposed to do it. Maybe if a non-priest does it, then it just means it's, I don't know, not listened to or not considered the same weight by God. I don't know. I don't speak for God. But at any rate, here we have people who claim to be priests or the descendants of priests, and they couldn't find proof. They couldn't find written proof, right? The family records. And so the governor ordered them not to eat any of the most sacred food until there was a priest ministering with the Urim and Tumim. So somehow or another, the Urim and Tumim, so somehow or another, the Urim and Tumim were supposed to resolve whether these people were actually priests or not, right? So it's some kind of oracle. It gives answers in one way or another. We don't really know. So who will fulfill the Messianic prophecies? Not Jesus. Okay. So, should we look at this in Hebrew? I don't think there's any reason to look in this in Hebrew. Maybe just this verse here, 62. Okay, so I'll get a few and just leave it. I hear you. Just set a time for 5 minutes. If I don't take care of it in 5 minutes, then you just take it on your own, okay? So here we go. So again, this is what we just read in English. Bnei HaKohanim. So from among the Kohanim, Bnei Chavaya, the children of Chavaya, the children of Hakotz, the children of Barzillai, Shelakach Mivnot Barzillai, who had Shelakach Mivnot Barzillai, who had so this Barzillai, I'm sorry, Asher Lakach Mivnot Barzillai Hagiladi Isha. Let me just think about this for 1 second. So who had taken from among the daughters of Barzillai the Giladi a woman or a wife. So I guess someone had married the daughters of Barzillai the Giladi, and I guess Barzillai the Giladi was a priest. V'yikarei al Shemam, and had been v'yikarei al Shemam, and been called by their name. Okay, verse 62. Ele bikshu k'tavatam ha'mityahasim v'lo nimsa'u v'yir'olu min ha'kehuna. So these same, the ones that were mentioned in the previous verse, sought out the tavam ha'mityahasim, the written proof of their lineage. V'lo nimsa'u, and they were not found. It was not found. V'yog'alu mina keuna, and they were defiled, or they were ga'al, they were made impure from the Kohen. They were disqualified for the priesthood. Okay, Yomer Tirshata, and the governor, that's referring to Nehemiah, said to them, Asher lo yochlu mikodesh hakodeshim, that they should not eat among the holy foods, the holy of holies, meaning the food, ad amod kohen leurim u'tumim, until a kohen could consult or could stand before the urim and the urim and the tumim. In other words, they could not verify their relationship to the priesthood, and so the answer was to come from the Urim and Tumim, which ostensibly weren't there at the time, which didn't exist, which were lost, or which had to be rebuilt, or something like that. So until it could be verified whether they were priests or not through the Urim and Tumim, then they were disqualified from the priesthood. Okay. And in Nehemiah 7:65, we have this retelling of the same story, basically. So that was in Ezra. So Ezra and Nehemiah retell a lot of the same stories. That was Ezra 2:63. Here we have Nehemiah 7:65. I'll just read the Hebrew. So basically the same thing, almost word for word. I think it's actually word for word exactly the same thing. Literally exact that we found in Ezra 2:63. Let's check it. Oops. So we put them side by side. We see it's literally exactly the same words. Word for word. Not a single difference. It's a vowelization. For instance, here it says Urim with Tumim, and it uses a vav here, and here it uses shuruk under the taf. But other than that, that might actually be the only difference. Oops. Looks like other than that, the vowels are pretty much the same. Yep. So it's basically a copy, right? So it's the same idea. So at any rate, the Urim and the Tumim were going to clarify in that case. So we saw in Numbers, it's mentioned in association with going out to war to consult the Urim and the Tumim. In the case of Samuel, right before his death, it says he couldn't get an answer from the Urim and the Tumim, so he went to the witch of Ein Dor, right? We saw that in 1 Samuel chapter 28. And now we see in Nehemiah 2:63, Ezra 2:63, and Nehemiah, whatever the chapter and verse was, I don't remember offhand, that we couldn't tell, or it was unable to be proven whether these people were Kohanim or not, and that was to be resolved ultimately by the Urim and Tumim. Okay, and that's it. Those are the only places that the Urim and Tumim appear in the entire Tanakh. Yeah, that's it. Nehemiah 7:65 was it. That's it. Okay, so hold on one second. So you're going to take it here. Eat it over in the living room, okay? Yes. Good. Take a fork. All right. Should be delicious. So it might need a little salt. The skin of the potatoes is healthy. Can't do better than the skin of the sweet potato. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me know if you need salt. I'll get you salt. So what else can we say about the Urim and the Tumim? Well, again, we could look at the BDB. Oh, we could look at the Wikipedia article on Urim and Tumim. Maybe that's a good way to go. Read the whole thing. Well, let's just get an idea of what these suckers are, these things are. So, okay, so in the Hebrew Bible, the Urim, lights, and the Tumim, meaning perfections perhaps, are elements of the Choshen. The Choshen is the breastplate worn by the high priest attached to the ephod. That's what we just learned. They're connected with kleromancy. So that's divination by casting lots. Most scholars suspect that the phrase refers to a set of two objects used by the high priest to answer a question or reveal the will of God. The Urim and Tumim first appear in Exodus 28:30. We just saw that, where they are named for inclusion in the breastplate to be worn by Aaron in the holy place. Other books, especially 1 Samuel, describe their uses. And that's what we saw in 1 Samuel chapter 28. Right, let's look at that one more time. Oops. Yeah, I should have chosen. Just put in the English. So once again, so Saul inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or by Urim or prophets. And that's when he decides, when he can't get an answer through prophets. Remember, Samuel's already dead. Samuel was basically his main prophet, just like Nathan would be David's main prophet. Now that Samuel's dead, that's when he decides to go to the witch of Endor, to the Ov Endor. So Urim has traditionally been taken to derive from a root meaning lights, although that's not for sure. It would make sense though. These derivations are reflected in the Nikudot of the Masoretic text. In consequence, Urim and Tumim has been translated as lights and perfections, or by taking the phrase allegorically, meaning revelation of truth and doctrine and truth. Appears in this form in the Vulgate. So the Vulgate was the translation into Latin of the Bible. In the writing of St. Jerome, I think the Vulgate was actually done by St. Jerome, right? Yep. Jerome, my father's English name, by the way. In the writing of St. Jerome and in the Hexapla, which I don't know what that is. The latter use was defended in modern Catholic interpretations, blah, 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 blah. So I always like to point out something interesting. If you look at the logo, the emblem of Yale University, you'll find something very interesting. So that's the emblem of Yale University. And if you see this is the official emblem of Yale University for, I don't even know how long this emblem has been around, for many, many, many hundreds of years, I believe. And there it says Urim and Tumim, and underneath it says in Latin, lux et veritas, which means light and truth. So that's the way the Yale scholars, whoever made it up, interpreted Urim and Tumim. Urim, lux, light, like in the Spanish luz or the Portuguese luz. Vitumim, veritas, truth, right? Tum, they understand that to come from the word tam, which means perfect or unblemished, so truth, right? So we could say a lot more about this. It's known that all of the early colleges, such as Harvard, Yale, Princeton, it was required up until certainly through most of the 1800s, maybe even the 1900s, that in order to graduate from Yale, you had to be fluent in biblical Hebrew, believe it or not. It was one of the requirements. If I remember correctly, also you had to be fluent in the classical languages, such as Latin and Greek, but you also had to be fluent in biblical Hebrew. So there was a strong connection with these early universities. I mean, they were basically set up to train Protestant pastors. And they had a strong emphasis on learning Hebrew and studying the Bible. How different it has become today. At any rate, so to go on, we were talking about Urim and Tumim. So Tumim is widely considered to be derived from the consonantal root tamam, meaning innocence. Many scholars now believe that the Urim simply derives from the Hebrew word Ararim, meaning curses, and thus Urim and Tumim essentially means cursed or faultless. Okay, interesting. In reference to the deity's judgment of an accused person, in other words, Urim and Tumim were used to answer the question innocent or guilty. Well, that's interesting because they are placed in, or they're associated with the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment, and judgment has to do with being innocent or guilty. But again, nobody really knows. It's all speculation. Okay. Assyriologist William Muss Arnold connected. Siri thought no, Siri. I said Assyriologist. I didn't say Siri. Yeah. Assyriologist William Muss Arnold connected the singular forms Ur and Tum with the Babylonian terms Urtu and Tamitu, meaning oracle and command. Okay, any rate. Form and function. 1 Samuel 14:41. Is regarded by biblical scholars as key to understanding the Urim and Tumim. The passage describes an attempt to identify sinner by repeatedly splitting the people into two groups and identifying which contains the sinner. In this version of the passage, in the Masoretic text, it describes Shaul and Jonathan being separated from the rest of the people and lots being cast between them. The Septuagint version, however, states that the Urim would indicate Shaul and Jonathan, while the Tumim would indicate the people. So it does not say this in the Masoretic texts. We could look at that for 1 second. So 1 Samuel 14:41. So this is where Shaul tells everyone not to eat food. And Jonathan had not heard that his father had bound the people with an oath, so he reached out the end of a staff that was in his hand and dipped it into the honeycomb. By the way, the Hebrew word for honeycomb, bulk, in that case is going to be tzuf. 1 Samuel 14:27. Let me just verify that. One second. How do I do this? $14.27. ויונתן לא שמע בהשביע אביו את העם. No, it doesn't say tzuf. It says ביערת דבש. הדבש וישב ידו אל פיו. ותראה עיניו. Okay, forget it. That was something else. So Jonathan eats honey. Just 1 second here. So then Shaul wants to find out. Okay, so Shaul wants to ask God, should he go down and pursue the Philistines? God doesn't answer him, and then Shaul understands that someone had broken his oath, had eaten in the case Jonathan had eaten honey because he didn't hear about the oath. So then Shaul prayed to the Lord, the God of Israel, why have you not answered your servant today? If the fault is in me or my son Jonathan, responded with the Urim. And let's take a look at this in the Hebrew. So that's 1 Samuel 14:41. One second. She'll set the Israelites. One second. So Shaul asked God, should I go down after the Philistines? Will you give them into the hand of Israel? And he did not answer, meaning God did not answer Shaul on that day. Verse 38. So the numbering is a little bit different in the Hebrew here. Sometimes the numbering is off here. Yomer Shaul, Gishu, Halom, Kol Penot Am. So Shaul says, all of you leaders of the nation, come here. And know and see what was the sin of the people today. Verse 39. Because as Yahweh lives, that's a swear in God's name, Hamoshiach Yisrael, who redeems or saves Israel, Ki'im ishno b'Yonatan b'ni, kimot yamut ve'en onehu mikol ha'am. And so basically, okay, I'll translate it word for word, because as God lives, as Yahweh who saves Israel lives, that if the sin exists in Yonatan, in other words, if Yonatan, his own son, is guilty, kimot yamut, then even he shall surely die. Ve'en onehu mikol ha'am, and nobody among all the people answered him. V'yomer el kol Yisrael, and he said to all of Israel, Atem ti'u le'ever echad, you should be on one side, ve'ani v'Yonatan b'ni niyeh le'ever echad, and me and Yonatan my son, and I and Yonatan my son shall be on the other side. V'yomru ha'am el Shaul hatov be'anecha aseh, and the people said to Shaul, do what is good in your eyes. V'yomer Shaul el Yahweh Elohei Yisrael, hava tamim v'yelaked Yonatan v'Shaul v'ha'am yatsu. So Shaul said to Yahweh, the God of Israel, so here it says bring, okay, then do it. Bring the tamim. So it doesn't say tumim here, v'yelaked Yonatan v'Shaul ha'am yatsu. So, and Yonatan and Shaul were gathered together, were pointed out, and the rest of the nation was not. Yomer Shaul, hapiru beni uben Yonatan ubeni v'yelaked Yonatan. In other words, Yonatan was chosen as the one who had committed the sin. And that sin was that, again, that Shaul had made the entire nation swear that they wouldn't eat, but they had to go out and fight. They were hungry, and in the case of Yonatan, he ate without knowing that there had been issue that Shaul, his father, had made the entire people swear that they wouldn't eat. So, at any rate, he's chosen by what? So this whole thing here, Havat Tamim. So this is where they're getting the idea that it's Urim and Tumim, but it doesn't say Tumim. It says Havat Tamim. Bring the Tamim. Here they translate it as a perfect lot, but apparently the Septuagint is understanding that to be the Urim and the Tumim, because it says Havat Tamim. And let me just get the meaning of this word here. Yeah, so it doesn't say anything. Okay, it's an interesting one. It requires a bit more study. All right, let's go back to reading the Wikipedia article. The description of the clothing of the Hebrew high priest in the book of Exodus portrays the Urim and Tumim as being put in the sacred breastplate worn by the high priest over the ephod. That's what we learned. Where the biblical text elsewhere describes an ephod being used, scholars presume that is referring to the use of the Urim and Tumim in conjunction with the ephod, as this seems to be intimately connected with it. Similarly, where non-prophets are portrayed as asking God for guidance and the advice is not described as given by vision, scholars think that Urim and Tumim were the medium implied. In all but two cases, the question is one which is effectively answered by a simple yes or no. A number of scholars believe that the two exceptions to this pattern, which give more complex answers, were originally also just sequences of yes or no questions, but became corrupted by later editing. There is no description of the form of the Urim and Tumim in the passage describing the high priest's vestments, and a number of scholars believe that the author of the passage, which textual scholars attribute to the priestly source, that's the documentary hypothesis, was not actually entirely aware of what they were either. Nevertheless, the passage does describe them as being put into the breastplate, which scholars think implies they were objects put into some sort of pouch within it, and then, while out of view, one side, if the Urim and Tumim was a single object, was chosen by touch and withdrawn or thrown out. Since the Urim and Tumim were put inside the pouch, they were presumably small and fairly flat, and were possibly tablets of wood or bone. Considering the scholar's conclusion that Urim essentially means guilty and Tumim essentially means innocent, this would imply that the purpose of the Urim and Tumim was an ordeal to confirm or refute suspected guilt. If the Urim was selected, it meant guilt, while the selection of the Tumim would mean innocence. Again, that's all speculation. Okay, this is all rabbinical stuff. I don't know if this is relevant, but it's interesting, so I'll read it for the heck of it. According to Islamic sources, there was a similar form of divination among the Arabs before the beginning of Islam. There, two arrow shafts without heads or feathers, one of which was written command and the other prohibition or similar, were kept in a container and stored in the Kaaba, Mecca. Whenever someone wished to know whether to get married, go on a journey, or to make some other similar decision, one of the Kaaba's guardians would randomly pull out one of the arrow shafts of the container, and the word written on it was said to indicate the will of God concerning the matter in question. Sometimes a third blank arrow shaft would be used to represent the refusal of the deity to give an answer. The practice is called rabdomancy, after the Greek roots robbed, rod, and Nancy, divination. Interesting. Okay. Should we go on? Yes, let's go on. One more paragraph. Learn a bit more about the Urim and the Tumim. Okay. The first reference to the Urim and the Tumim in the Bible is a description of the book of Exodus concerning the high priest's vestments. That's what we saw here. That's right here. Okay? That's in Exodus 28:30. That's the first reference in the entire Torah to the Urim and Tumim. The chronologically earliest passage, blah, 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 where it's implied by reference to the ephod that the Urim and Tumim were fundamental elements in the popular form of Israelite religion. So that's referring to Hosea. Of course, according to biblical textual scholars, Hosea is written earlier than the Torah itself, but forget that. Let's see where in Isaiah. So the ephod is mentioned in, I'm sorry, not in Isaiah, in Hosea. So let's see if we can find that. Let me just find the word ephod. And we'll check the concordance for ephod. Hosea 3:4. Let's go there. Let's grab the Hebrew. So this is Hosea chapter 3. We'll just start here in 1. Verse 1, Yomer Yahweh Elai Od Lech Ehev Isha Ahovat Rea Umina Efet Ke'avat Yahweh Et Bnei Yisrael. We'll skip ahead a little bit. It's poetic. Let me just see where it is, where it mentions Yamim. 1 second. שבני ישראל אין מלך ואין שר ואין זבח ואין מצבה ואין אפוד ותרפים. So here's the verse, okay? Because ki yamim rabim yeshvu b'nei Israel, because for many days, for many years, for a long time, yeshvu b'nei Israel, the children of Israel exist without a king, ve'en sar, and without officers or leaders, ve'en zevach, and without sacrifices, ve'en matzeva, and without a standing stone or a pillar, ve'en ephod, and without the ephod, and without household gods. Trafim are usually like miniature gods, like the Christians walk around with a little Jesus statue or something like that. Okay, so that is somehow meant to say the ephod is referencing okay, that's referencing the Urim and the Tumim. I don't know about that. Okay. Consulting the Urim and the Tumim was said to be permitted for determining territorial boundaries and was said to be required in addition to permission from the king or a prophet if there was an intention to expand Jerusalem or the temple in Jerusalem. I think that's probably rabbinical. Yep, that's all rabbinical stuff. However, these rabbinical sources did question or at least tried to justify why Urim and Tumim would be required when a prophet was also present. This is all rabbinical stuff. Forget that. So to uncover the sin of Achan, that's the person who stole spoils in war. Lots were used by Joshua. Abiathar joined David, who was then in the cave of Adullam. He remained with David and became priest of the part of Abba. I don't know where that's coming from. When David ascended the throne of Judah, okay, and then we go into Josephus. I think that's it. Okay. All right, so that's the Urim and Tumim. Let's go on here. It is getting late. I'm going to go for about another half an hour max. So we were up to here, I believe. Yep, we were up to here. So I'm going to try to go into express mode here because we're running out of time. I'm going to go for another half an hour or so. So let me close out some of these. Verse 31. So we're in Exodus 28:31. ועשית את מעיל האפוד כליל תכלת. Okay, so you shall make the ma'il of the ephod. So the ephod is the outermost garment. Now we have the next garment after it. The next inner garment. That's the ma'il. You could see it here in this picture. So underneath the ephod is the ma'il. And we'll go back to the video in just a bit. Wilhaya it pi rosho bitocho. שפה יהיה לפיו, סביב מעשה אורג כפי תחרה יהיה לא יקרע. So vaya pirosho, so the mouth of its head, so I assume that's referring to the top part here, in other words, where you put the head through. יהיה לפיו, והיה פיו ראשו בתוכו, שפה יהיה לפיו, so there should be a lip around that top part, סביב, all around, מעשה אורג, an embroidered work, or woven work, כפי תחרה. So here they translate tahra as a coat of mail. I'm not familiar with that word, so I'll just go with their definition. Yeh lo yekara. So in other words, what I think it's trying to say is that the top of this ephod, like around here, there should be a woven work so it doesn't rip. Okay? Let me get it, see what Robert Alter has to say about that one. So this Exodus 28:32. bit of a difficult one to understand. So he says, and the opening for the head shall be in the middle of it. Its opening shall have a woven work border all around, like the opening of a coat of mail. It shall be, it must not tear. Okay, that's, I guess, pretty straightforward. Pretty much the translation that we gave. So 32. So this is a prevalent traditional interpretation. Sufi, you cannot be here now. Hello, everyone. Say hi to Sufi. Come, sweetheart. Out. She's getting hungry. You can feed her if you want. Do it outside. Whatever you want. But the crucial term in the phrase tahra does not appear elsewhere in a certain. So here we have a hapax legomenon. We have a word that appears only once in the Tanakh, tahra. So it's translated as male, as in armor, male as an M8. Like a coat of mail. So tahra, the BDB says probably linen corselet. Unkelis translates it as shirion. Shirion means like a protection or I would say shirion in English. Armored. So shirion is like an arm, like in modern Hebrew, is like an armored vehicle. So shirion, I guess, like you would find in a coat of arms, right? Basically, what it's basically saying, it would seem, is that it's protected so that it doesn't rip on this, like this part wouldn't rip. Okay. Okay. There's embroidered work around it, like thick embroidered work, so that it doesn't rip. Okay. Because if you look at it, right, it's not like the ephod already has all this embroidered work. It has the stones on it and the gold, right? So it's not going to rip easily. But maybe this undergarment, this next garment, this ma'il, maybe would rip easily because it's just made out of. It's not really made from these different types of threads. It's kalil techelet, right? It's made completely out of techelet. So maybe like this shirt, which is ironically made out of kind of techelet, could rip easily if it didn't have this border around it, right? And we don't want the priestly garments, the holy priestly garments, ripping. So I think that's what it's getting at. Verse 33, Vasita al shulau rimonei techelet. So on its extremities, on its borders, let's see how they translate shulav here. It's hem rimonei techelet. So you should make how do you say it again in English? The word is escaping me. These thingies, pomegranates. Pomegranates made out of techelet, the argaman v'tola'at shani. So pomegranates that are made out of blue, purple, and crimson, or in scarlet. Okay. Al shulav. So down at the bottom, right? There are going to be pomegranates that are made out of these three colors. Saviv. So you're going to make these pomegranates out of these three colors on its bottom. In other words, on the bottom hem. Saviv v'pa'onei zahav b'tocham saviv, and gold bells within them all around. So let's see if we can get a picture of that. So you can see that on the bottom here, kind of, right? So on this hem here, let's see if I can blow this up a bit. It's a bit hard to see, but all around here, so you see the different color, it looks like embroidered pomegranates, and I guess inside the pomegranates are going to be with gold bells between them. So it says bit tocham, so that I guess in that way they're interpreting as between them. Okay, no, it clarifies it here, right? So in verse 34, pa'amon zahav rimon, pa'amon zahav rimon. So you're going to have a gold bell, and then you're going to have a pomegranate, a gold bell, and then a pomegranate. Ashulav ha'me'ir saviv, and this is going to go all the way around, right? So I guess you're going to have a techelet, pomegranate, a gold bell. A argamon, a purple pomegranate, a gold bell. A tola'at shani, a scarlet pomegranate, a gold bell going all the way around, and that's going to be the bottom hem. That's what we see here, right? Right down there. So alternating, right? I'll just read this. Make pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn around the hem of the robe with gold bells between them. The gold bells and the pomegranates are to alternate around the hem of the robe. Aaron must wear it when he ministers. The sound of the bells will be heard when he enters the holy place before the Lord and when he comes out, so that he will not die. Okay. And that's what it says here. V'haya al Aaron misharet. So it should be on Aaron as he is serving. Wanishma kolo bivo'o el kodesh, and its sound shall be heard, its voice shall be heard, the sound of the bell shall be heard when he comes into the holy place, before Yahweh, and when he goes out. So when he's walking in, he's walking out, the bells are going to ring, velo yamut, and he will not die. So again, I think this harkens back to the same idea of it really goes back in a certain sense to Yom Teruah, right? You're making noise, you're calling out to Yahweh, so that you're remembered before him, right? We've now seen this is kind of the third thing, two explicitly, and now one implicitly, that implies that God is to be reminded of something, right? So we saw on the onyx stones that are on the shoulders, we have the 12 tribes, right? And that's to be a zikaron, that's to be remembrance when Aaron walks in to God. We have the choshen mishpat, the breastplate, 4 rows of the 3 tribes each. Again, that was mentioned as being a zikaron, right, on his heart. So he's reminding, so that's going to remind God again of the 12 tribes. And these bells are going to somehow call out to God, right? We know on Yom Teruah, we call out to God by making noise. We call out to heaven by making noise. And that's supposed to basically remember or make God remember us for good, right? Remember, all the good stuff. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the sons of Jacob. So I think that's the same idea here, that these bells are going to kind of make God, or symbolically make God remember Israel, and or in this case, remember Aaron, so that he doesn't die. That's my opinion. I'm not sure if anybody knows for sure. See if Robert Alter has anything to say. So golden bell and pomegranate, blah, blah, blah. The sheer splendor of the ornamentation is evoked in poetic incarnation through the repetition of the phrase. Yehuda Levi, the great medieval Hebrew poet, echoes these words in a delicate, richly sensual love poem, registering an imaginary blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in the ancient Near East, the inner sanctum was a dangerous place. Any misstep or involuntary trespass of sacred paraphernalia could bring death. Compare verse 38. The device with the divine name on Aaron's golden diadem carries away any guilt that may be incurred in violating the holy things the Israelites consecrate. So that's in 38. We're going to get to that in a second. The sound of the ringing golden bells on Aaron's hem goes before him as he enters the sanctum, serving an apotropaic function to shield him from harm in the zone of danger. And I have no idea. There goes Robert Alter using another word that I don't know what it means. So let's look it up in this case so we can get an idea of what he's trying to say. He likes to use words that nobody knows what they mean. Supposedly having the power to avert evil influences or bad luck. Okay, that doesn't really describe much. So I think what it does is, I think it serves, in my opinion, and it's really no more than an educated guess, I would say, it serves a similar role that the shofar or the noise-making device on Yom Teruah would serve. It calls out to heaven so that God remembers us for good, and in this case, doesn't kill Aaron by either making a mistake when he's approaching God, or just by the very essence of him being close to God. That's my opinion. Okay. Verse 36. So that covers now the ma'il. So that's the ma'il. Okay, the blue garment. Okay. Again, just to reiterate, this 3x4 lattice structure, that's the choshen mishpat, the breastplate of judgment. This over here are the shoulder pads that have the onyx stones with the 12 tribes, 6 on each. This outer garment is the ephod, and then the next lower garment is the ma'il. made completely out of techelet. Okay. All right, now we get to the tzitz. So asita tzitz zahav tahor wa pitachta alav pituche chotem kodesh Yahweh. So now we're going to make a tzitz. What is a tzitz? It's usually translated as diadem. So what is a diadem? It's this thing up here, and you can even see it's this. It's like a crown kind of thingy, right? It's the thing that goes across his forehead, and you can see here that it says Kodesh le Yahweh, okay, on that picture. So that's the tzitz. So you shall engrave upon it the engravings of a signet ring, right? So in other words, it's an engraving, basically, like you would engrave on a signet ring. A signet ring was a ring that was used to impress a sign into. It was usually wax or some kind of soft substance that would dry. Verse 37. وصمت أطور على بتير تخيلت وحيا على هامتسنفت المول بني هامتسنفت إيه. So you shall place it upon a بتير تخيلت, upon a thread or string of, again, tchelet. This is now the second time we've had a Petir Techelet mentioned, right? So the Petir Techelet attaches the, I believe it's the breastplate to the ephod. And now we have a Petir Techelet that is going to attach the, that is going to attach the tzitz. So I guess the tzitz would be here, and the Petir Techelet would go around the back. And then it would attach it over, and it should be on the mitznefet. What's the mitznefet? The mitznefet is the turban. And it should be basically be positioned across from or in front of the pnei mitznefet, the front of the mitznefet. So that's what we see in the picture here. So we see the tzitz, that's the golden thing here that says Kodesh Yahweh. Underneath we have the turban, that's the mitznefet, and the tzitz is tied with a Petir Techelet, with a string of Techelet. And I point out once again that that's what's mentioned that we're supposed to put on our tzitzit, on the corners of our garment, the Petir Techelet, right? So again, the Petir Techelet that's mentioned tzitzit may harken back again directly to the, it may deliberately be recollecting or be referencing the priestly garments. And then this tzitz is tied around, underneath is the mitznefet or the turban. So now this is the fourth priestly garment that we've gotten up to, right? So we have, well, I guess the fifth. We have Fod, the Choshen Mishpat, the Me'il, the blue undergarment, the Tzitz, that's the diadem, the gold diadem, and then we have the Mitznefet, the turban that's underneath. Okay. Verse 38. Wahaya al mitah Ahron. So it should be on Aaron's forehead. ונשא אהרון את עוון הקודשים אשר יקדישו בני ישראל לכל מתנות קודשיהם והיה על המצחו תמיד לרצון להם לפני יהוה. So it should be on the forehead of Aaron. What are we talking about? The tzitz. The tzitz that says Kodesh Yahweh. The tzitz that says holy to Yahweh. Nasaron et Avon HaKodeshim. So Aaron shall bear or shall carry the iniquity of the holy things. Talk about that in a second. Asher yakdishu b'nei Yisrael, which Israel sanctifies, the children of Israel sanctify lechol matanot kachehem, according to all the gifts of their holy things. Vaya al mitzchot tamid leratzon lehem lifnei Yahweh, and it should be on his forehead always. To gain favor before them, before Yahweh. So what the heck is this talking about, right? Let's translate it again, kind of word for word. Vayal metzach Aaron. It should be on. We're talking about the tzitz, that golden diadem that says Kodesh Yahweh, that says holy to Yahweh. It shall be on the forehead of Aaron. V'nasa Aaron et avon hakodeshim, and Aaron shall carry the iniquity of the holy things. Asher yakdishu b'nei Yisrael, which the children of Israel sanctify. Lechol matnot kadshehem, through all of the gifts of their holy things, and it shall be on his forehead always, as to gain favor for them before Yahweh. So the way I understand it, and we could check a couple of commentaries, is that so the key here is avon kadoshim. So there's this constant fear that in the bringing of the sacrifices, or in general, in carrying out the worship, the cultic worship in the temple, that mistakes are going to be made, and in particular, that these mistakes, or that they're going to impurify the temple, right? So really, in number 16, when it speaks about the rituals of Yom Kippurim in detail, it's really a ritual regarding the cleansing of the temple, right? This whole idea of Yom Kippurim being somehow associated with personal forgiveness or personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Atonement, is either secondary or non-existent in the Torah. If it is existent, and that's up for debate, I would say, it's secondary. The whole idea really of Yom Kippurim is to atone for impurity, for accidentally or purposely impurifying the temple with by, let's say, either bringing in an animal that should not have been brought in, let's say an animal with a blemish, or carrying out the cultic worship in the temple that's prescribed mostly in the book of Leviticus incorrectly, right? This all impurifies the temple, and if the temple is impurified, then Yahweh gets very mad. It's like dirtying his house, right? So there's these constant ideas of cleansing the temple from impurities or from mistakes, and I think, in my opinion, that's what this is relating to. So it says here, Aaron will carry the iniquity of the holy things. So I think somehow this tzitz, which is kodesh Yahweh, holy to Yahweh, somehow or another serves as a way to cleanse the mistakes of Israel, or to cleanse the impurities of the temple. That's my opinion on it. We could look at what some other commentators may say. So we can look at, let's just get Robert Alter, the translation, first of all. And it shall be on Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear off any guilt from the holy things that the Israelites consecrate from all their holy gifts, and it shall be on his forehead perpetually for their acceptance before the Lord. So that's 38. So I think he referred to it up here. Where was that? One second. Right, so we'll start reading here. So any misstep or involuntary trespass of the sacred paraphernalia can bring death. And then he says, compare verse 38. That's our verse right here. Okay, the device with the divine name on Aaron's golden diadem, that's the tzitz, right? Kodesh Yahweh, carries away any guilt that may be incurred in violating the holy things that the Israelites consecrate. The sound of the ringing bells on Aaron's hem goes before him as he enters the sanctum, serving as an apotropaic function, and we read what that word means. That means warding off evil, to shield him from harm in the zone of danger. Okay? So we'll just read here, verse 36, talking about the tzitz. Translated here is diadem. Diadem means a crown. This is another term about which there is dispute. The primary meaning of the Hebrew tzitz is blossom, and so this might be a blossom-shaped gold ornament bound upon the forehead, of the sort the Egyptians were known to use. In poetry, tzitz appears in parallelism with nezer, crown. Okay, and here we get to our verse. Any guilt, if, for example, an Israelite consecrated to the cult, an animal marred by a blemish, guilt would be incurred. So that's basically exactly what we said, right? So this somehow or another, right? So it's protecting this tzitz, either diadem or blossom-shaped diadem, crown, this thing on his head, this thing here, this sucker here, right? This golden thing that says Kodesh Yahweh. So very specifically, one second. Where was it? Okay, so it doesn't say that it'll die if by doing this, but yeah, it implies basically pretty much what we said earlier, that somehow or another this is atoning for the mistakes that the Israelites may have made in their cultic worship, which could impurify the temple and could also get Yahweh very, very angry, to the point where if his temple is impurified, he tends to strike out and kill, right? Just like you wouldn't go into the White House and like take a crap on the floor or something like that, right? If you did that, then Biden, if he still had a functioning brain, would probably get really pissed off and maybe put you in jail or something like that, right? So this is God's palace, and there are very specific rules prescribed on how to interact or how to act within God's palace, right? From the bringing of the sacrifices to the way that the menorah and the showbread altar and the incense altar are set up, etc., right? In different times and different rituals that are supposed to be carried out very precisely and very exactly. And if any of those are any mistakes are made in that cultic worship within the tabernacle/temple, then that could symbolically, that could impurify, that could dirty the temple. And God does not like his temple to be dirty, so he gets angry, and that's when he strikes out. So this somehow or another is supposed to atone for or deflect any punishment that might come upon, I guess, either Aaron or the children of Israel, or perhaps both. I'm thinking probably it means on Aaron himself, because he's the one wearing it, but it could be referring to the children of Israel. Somehow or another, it deflects any punishment that Yahweh may hand out through the improper cultic worship of Yahweh in the temple, either by mistake or perhaps even on purpose. Okay? Shabbat Shalom, Ipan Avior. Okay, so that's the tzitz. Go a little bit more. I guess we'll go to the bottom of this, then we'll watch that video one more time, and then I'm going to end because it's already getting pretty late. We've been going at it for a long time. Okay. So now we're up to the ketonet. So what's the ketonet? So we've spoken about the ma'il. Under the ma'il, we have the ketonet. The ketonet is the undergarment. Here in this picture, you can see below the blue, the blue ma'il, right? Which they usually translate, I think, as the robe. I can't remember how they translate it. Let's see. How do they translate it here? Whatever. The robe, and then the undergarment is this white thing underneath the ma'il. Okay, so that is the most, it's basically the underpants, right? Or the undergarment. Okay, that's the ketonet. Ketonet should be pointed out is the same word that's used in the garment that Jacob gave to Joseph. That's called the ketonet pasim, usually understood as a striped garment or a splendorous garment, or if they don't really know what the word pasim means. In modern Hebrew, pas means a line, but that's not necessarily clear. When we were learning the book of Genesis, then we spoke about the fact that it's not really understood exactly what pas means, but we can call it we can translate it as Joseph's Technicolor dream coat or something like that. But there it's called ketonet pasim, so it's the same thing. It's that same word that's used here, ketonet. Okay, here ketonet is translated as tunic. Robert Alter translates it as tunic. Everett Fox translates it as verse is at 39. Coat. Okay. So we get the idea. So shibatz the ketonet shesh. So you are to shibatzta is like lattice work kind of thing. If they translate it skillfully weave, so we'll go with that. Skillfully weave the undergarment or the tunic with shesh. Shesh is usually understood as scarlet. And again, in our list of what these various things mean, so we'll go to that for 1 second. Shesh is usually translated as fine linen. but it's also perhaps understood by some people as the byssal thread of muscles, also known as sea silk, which has kind of a yellowish orange color, and therefore sometimes it's translated as ochre, I think, O-C-H-R-E, which is kind of an orange color. Ochre. So at any rate, we'll go with fine linen because that's the usual trans. Nah, I don't like fine linen. Let's go with ochre. So you shall embroider the tunic with ochre or with fine linen. Vasita mitznefet shesh, and she'll make the mitznefet. So that's the tunic. Remember, we have the tzitz. That's the diadem, the crown with the kodesh Yahweh, and behind it is a petit techelet, is a lace of or a strap of sky blue. But underneath is the mitznefet, is the turban. That's the mitznefet, that white turban. Okay, so that should be also made with shesh, fine linen, or ochre, or byssal threads of muscles. V'avnet ta'aseh ma'aseh rokem. So what is the avnet? The avnet is the belt, the sash. There's our picture. Okay, that's the belt right there. Okay. Actually, that might not be the avnet. 1 second here. Let me just clarify that. No, I think this is part of the ephod, and it's not made out of shesh. We can see it's made out of the same material as the ephod, which is the four things twined together. So I think the avnet is underneath. I think it's holding the undergarment up, and we don't see it in the picture. At any rate, no, but Maser Rokem is woven, so maybe it is referring to that. All right, we'll get to that in a second. Maybe it'll be clarified. Okay, verse 40, Udvnei Aaron, and to the sons of Aaron. So this ends here, basically, the garments for the high priest, for Aaron. Okay, these are the garments of Aaron. Now we have the garments of Aaron's sons, so these are the assistant priests, right? So they are not going to get the same get-up as Aaron is, right? So let's read through the rest of this chapter, and then we'll look at the video one more time, and then I'm going to end. So they're going to get that the ketonet is that undergarment. Again, that's the white undergarment. Okay. Avnetim, and they're going to get a sash, right, a belt. Umigbaot. So migbaot is, let's look at the BDB on that one. They usually translate it as like hats or something like that. Headgear, turban. So it's different from the mitznefet. The high priest gets the mitznefet that was described earlier, and they're not going to get a mitznefet. They're going to get a migbaot, which is, again, another type of turban, but not as fancy as the one that's worn by the high priest. So they don't get all of it. They get the undergarment, they get a sash, and they get a turban. Okay? They don't get the ma'il, and they certainly don't get the ephod and all the things that are on the ephod. Okay? So you shall make for them for honor and for glory. So this is again what the common priests are going to wear. I shouldn't say common priests, because already priest is a very special distinction within Israel, but the non-high priests. Hilbashtotam et Aaron achicha. Wa'ed banav ito. And you shall place these garments upon them. Again, this is God speaking to Moses. So Moses is going to place his garments upon them. So et Aaron on Aaron, et Aaron achicha. And if there was any doubt that it was God speaking to Moses, it says Aaron, your brother. So whose brother is Aaron? Moses' brother, right? And we're certainly not talking about Miriam, so it's got to be Moses, right? Et banav and his sons, right? The 4 sons. Ito, together with him, umashahda otam, and you shall anoint them, and we'll get to the anointing and the anointing oil and all of this kind of stuff later. But mashachta, it should be pointed out that is the same word where you get the word Mashiach or Messiah. Mashiach just means, as many people already know, the anointed one of Yahweh, the one on whose head oil is poured, and that was a ritual of anointing, right? Inauguration. And it's the same thing here. So the Mashiach is not only the king of Israel, the Mashiach is also other people, and in this case, the high priest, or all of the priests are anointed. They're the messiahs, the anointed ones. Okay? Umeleted yadam, and literally fill their hand, but what it means is inaugurate them into office. Vikidashtotam, and you shall sanctify them. And they shall serve. They shall serve me as priests, or they shall minister before me. I think the way they usually translate this is okay. Verse 42. Wa'aseh michnasei bad. So you shall make for them, so michnasei bad, trousers of cloth, of linen, nechasot basar erwa, so to cover up their private parts, basically, the flesh of their nakedness, mutnaim ad yerekaim yi'u, from their mutnaim, the mutnaim is the loins or the waist down to the thighs. Okay, so then there's an undergarment underneath that you can't even see here, underneath this ketonet, underneath the robe, it's basically like underpants. So none of their nudity is showing at all when they minister in the temple, as opposed to, as many people pointed out, as opposed to the pagan cults where nudity, sex, temple prostitutes, all of this kind of stuff was rampant. Okay, and there's of course a commandment which we'll get to, that the altar, we already get to it, I can't remember now, I think not yet, that the altar is not to have steps, but is to be a ramp, so that the nakedness of the priests is not uncovered. So in other words, if they walk up the ramp, if they walk up a stair, they may, as they go up, right, it kind of exposes a little bit, at least to the air, or at least, underneath, exposes a little bit more their nakedness. But if they go up a ramp, then they're just going up steady. Nothing is jumping up and down. Okay? Vayu al Aaron va'al banav bivoam el ohel moed. So this they shall be on Aaron and on his children. And I'm going to assume, since this is a summary sentence, this is speaking about all of the garments that we've started talking about up here. Okay? Not just speaking about the underpants, not just speaking about the michnasei bad. Vayu al Aaron va'al banau. So it shall be on Aaron and his sons, bivoam el ohel moed, when they go into the tent of meeting. That's the tabernacle, right? Or berishtam el hamizbeach, or when they approach the altar, lishoret b'kodesh, when they minister in the holy area, velo isu awon, and they shall not bear iniquity, omit and metu, and die. Right. So they have to be dressed in all of these garments, or otherwise they're bearing iniquity. They're doing they're causing iniquity, or they're bearing iniquity, and then they could potentially die. This is an eternal statute for him and for his descendants, for seed. And again, the word seed, as a friend of mine always points out, specifically means the male descendants. Mizara'o, zera means seed. Seed comes out of the male and out of the male's descendants, and so on and so forth. So Lizara'o means the descendant, the male line. And of course, that's particularly apt here in the case of the Kohanim, because it's only the males that are going to be serving in the temple, Aharav, after him. And that ends chapter 28. Okay? Any questions? Any comments? So it's pretty late here. We've been going at this for over 3 hours. I'm going to run this video one more time, and then we're going to end. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to go on and read chapters 29 and 30. Fascinating though they are, but it does go on to another topic. One second. Sufi, well, put her outside. She cannot be making noise, okay? I'll be done in a couple minutes. All right, so that's the garments of the priest. Okay, pretty beautiful stuff. Kind of complicated, but once you kind of wrap your head around it, no pun intended, right? I guess the tzitz is wrapped around the head, not the head wrapped around it. But that's what we have. Okay, so let's look at this video one more time. And after that, we'll just open it up for any final questions or comments, and then we will end the study. All right, let me set it up. Jewish priestly garments. That's that. Share. Can you please? I'm right in the middle. Okay. Put her outside, please. All right. I know, but just do it, okay? Because, well, I just please do what you can, okay? Because I'm right in the middle of a study now. Thank you. Okay, so, all right, let's run this video. And did I set it up correctly? I believe so. So here we go from the beginning.
And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother for glory and for beauty. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate and an ephod and a robe and a broidered coat, a mitre and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple, of scarlet and fine twined linen with cunning work. It shall have the two shoulder pieces thereof joined at the two edges thereof, and so it shall be joined together. And the curious girdle of the ephod which is upon it shall be of the same, according to the work thereof, even of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. And thou shalt take 2 onyx stones, and grave on them the names of the children of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and the other 6 names of the rest on the other stone, according to their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet, shalt thou engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel. Thou shalt make them to be set in ouches of gold. And thou shalt put the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial unto the children of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord upon his 2 shoulders for a memorial. And thou shalt make ouches of gold, and 2 chains of pure gold at the ends. Of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work. After the work of the ephod thou shalt make it, of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of fine twined linen shalt thou make it. 4 square it shall be, being doubled. A span shall be the length thereof, and a span shall be the breadth thereof. And thou shalt set in it settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This shall be the first row. And the second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold in their enclosings. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet. Every one with his name shall they be, according to the 12 tribes. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate chains at the ends of wreathen work of pure gold. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate 2 rings of gold, and shalt put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And thou shalt put the 2 wreathen chains of gold in the 2 rings which are on the ends of the breastplate. And the other 2 ends of the 2 wreathen chains thou shalt fasten in the 2 ouches, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And thou shalt make 2 rings of gold, and thou shalt put them upon the 2 ends of the breastplate in the border thereof, which is in the side of the ephod inward. And 2 other rings of gold thou shalt make, and shalt put them on the 2 sides of the ephod underneath, toward the forepart thereof, over against the other coupling thereof, above the curious girdle of the ephod. And they shall bind the breastplate by the rings thereof unto the rings of the ephod with a lace of blue, that it may be above the curious girdle of the ephod, and that the breastplate be not loosed from the ephod. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, when he goeth in unto the holy place, for a memorial before the Lord continually. And thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goeth in before the Lord. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually. And thou shalt make the robe of the ephod all of blue, and there shall be an hole in the top of it in the midst thereof. It shall have a binding of woven work round about the whole of it, as it were the hole of an habergeon, that it be not rent. And beneath upon the hem of it thou shalt make pomegranates of purple and of scarlet round about the hem thereof, and bells of gold between them round about, a golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate upon the hem of the robe round about, and shall be upon Aaron to minister. And his sound shall be heard when he goeth in unto the holy place before the Lord, and when he cometh out, that he die not. And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and engrave upon the engravings of a signet, Holiness to the Lord. And thou shalt put it on a blue lace, that it may be upon the mitre, upon the forefront of the mitre it shall be. And it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things which the children of Israel shall hallow in all their holy gifts. And it shall be always upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before the Lord. And thou shalt embroider the coat of fine linen, and thou shalt make the mitre of fine linen, and thou shalt make the girdle of needlework. And for Aaron's sons thou shalt make coats, and thou shalt make for them girdles, and bonnets shalt thou make for them, for glory and for beauty. And thou shalt put them upon Aaron thy brother and his sons with him, and shalt anoint them, and consecrate them, and sanctify them, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. And thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness. From the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach. And they shall be upon Aaron and upon his sons, when they come in unto the tabernacle of the congregation, or when they come near unto the altar to minister in the holy place, that they bear not iniquity and die. It shall be a statute forever unto him and his seed after him.
All right. So let's finish it up. Any questions, any comments before we end here? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Sold. All right. I want to thank you all for joining me here for the World Alliance of Qara'im Shabbat study for Parshat Tetzaveh. And we'll go out with a little bit of music. And I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov, depending on where you are in the world. And we shall pick it up, Be'ezrat Yahweh, next week. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו תמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך אוי מתי תמלוך בציון בכל יום בימינו בכל יום בימינו אוי לעולם ותשכון ותתקדש זוהי ירושלים עירך דור ודור לדור ודור ולנצח נצח ועינינו תראינה מלכותך כדברנו בשירי עוזיך בשירי עוזיך ועל ידי דוד ועל ידי דוד משיח צדקך בשירי עוזיך ועל ידי דוד ועל ידי דוד משיח צדקך